meeting as the Provo City School District Board of Education. It is Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. The time is 2:24 p.m. We're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. And we will begin with a roll call. Melanie Hall, Board President.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Vice President.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
Keith Rachel, Superintendent.
Okay, is there a motion to convene?
As soon as we convene today.
How many days left?
17 days.
All right.
You have a countdown?
I got an app.
All right, go ahead, Keith.
Okay, I just wanted to say, McPherson Jacobson Rain Associates, Heather Young and Atia, Northwest Leaders Association and USBA, I've all worked with before as an applicant. I've never worked with them, of course, on this side. They're all very credible. This was not done by RFP, this was done by invitation. There are two other organizations that I looked at. One is also based in the Northwest, called Hank Harris and Associates. They're fairly small, so I did not invite them. And there's another big national one called School Exec Connect, which is, I believe, located somewhere in, I think it's Illinois. I left a couple of messages for them and I never heard back. Chances are they're kind of on a seasonal break right now. That might be how they're running. So I have worked with them one year when I was running up for Rochester, Minnesota, but it was many years ago before I came here. So they're all very credible organizations. I don't know who's worked in Utah before. I know Rain Associates has. Okay,
So how we're going to run this, though, is they'll probably present to us for 15 to 20 minutes, and then they'll probably get some time to ask questions if you have any for them. But I will be ending it at like 1 or 2 minutes before the each half hour, just so you're aware. Okay? All right.
if there's a key.
And
226, Board Member McKay Jensen has entered the meeting.
And then, so all four of these, the first ones you'll see are by Zoom or some such thing. And then Richard Stoll from USBA will be here in person.
Great.
Okay?
It's not their time yet, but McPherson is there.
We could start.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can we hear each other?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Want to do intros?
Sure. We'll start with introducing ourselves. We'll each wave our hands so you know who's talking. Go ahead.
I have two of my colleagues are still logging on. They're going to get on at 3:30, 2:30.
Okay, we'll wait for them to log on and then we'll do introductions.
Thank you. Yeah, we're a couple of minutes early, which is very rare in this business, by the way.
Your name is?
My name is Steve Joel. I'm going to be the lead consultant for this search. I've been with the company for 25 years. I just recently retired after a 37-year superintendent career in Lincoln, last 12 in Lincoln, Nebraska.
My condolences. And we are leaving the door open during this. If we have, it gets noisy up there, we'll close it most of the way.
Okay, they should be. I just texted them both. They should be on shortly. How's the weather in Provo today?
Rainy. Quite rainy.
A little drizzly today.
Well, that's good, right? Because you need rain.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We'll take it, and it feels like it's in the 70s maybe.
Yeah.
First time in a long time.
City 2 or 3 weeks ago, and boy, it looked really dry.
It has been.
Very hot.
Same in Lincoln, Nebraska. We need some significant storms. Hey, I have to tell you before we formally start, congratulations on the Cougs. They, that was a really big win Saturday. I am a Cougar fan, by the way, and I'll tell you why. One of my, you can't root for the Huskers anymore in but you can't tell anybody that. But a really good friend of mine, Jeff Anderson, who's the CEO of Audio Enhancement in Salt Lake City. I've just gotten to know Jeff professionally over the years, and he's actually invited me to the Wyoming game in Provo. So there's going to be a few superintendents that are going to be going around cheering for the Cougs and
Nice.
understand the most hospitable people and fans in America.
Well, you haven't been to volleyball yet.
I don't know if that's exactly the reputation right now.
That's what he tells me.
It should be.
It should be,
So,
yeah.
okay, I think we have everybody now. I think we're ready to go.
Okay. Well, welcome. We're grateful that you could present to us today. So we'll just raise our hands as we go around. I know it's kind of a small table. But I'm Melanie Holland, the board president.
I'm Rebecca Nielsen.
Melanie?
Yes?
I'm the, Rebecca
Recording
Nielsen,
in progress.
board vice president. Are we
Hold on,
good?
just 1 second. We're having technical difficulties.
Should I do it again, or does everybody have it? Okay, one more time. For the third time as a charm, Rebecca Nielsen, board vice president.
And I'm Jennifer Partridge, one of the board members.
McKay Jensen, a board member.
Terry McCabe, board member.
Derek Anderson, business administrator.
Keith Rattel, short-term superintendent.
Hello, Keith. I've heard a lot of really good things about you.
We're all lives. Thank you.
We'll introduce ourselves and go through our PowerPoint. We understand we have about 15 or 20 minutes, and then questions and answers that you might have. So I'm going to start with Judy, and then Christy, and then I'll finish up, and we'll move into the PowerPoint.
Hi, everybody. Great to meet you. I'm Judy Sclayer-Stein, and I'm from St. Louis. I'm a retired school administrator, having served as a teacher, principal, assistant superintendent before I retired. I've been with Mac and Jake for 7 years and have led and participated in superintendent search. Oh, I'm getting a kickback, I think. Sorry. Should I continue?
We can hear you
Yes.
fine.
We can hear you.
Okay. I've led and participated in superintendent searches all across, in various states across the country, as well as here in Missouri. And I found my involvement in superintendent searches to be some of the most professionally rewarding things that I have done. I really consider it an honor to work with boards of education to help them find their next leader. In my opinion, hiring the right leader is the most important thing you do. And as a side note, I just couldn't resist letting you know that I have dear family friends who have a long legacy with BYU. So getting the chance to visit with you today is particularly special, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. I will also mention that I am the and I use this word very lightly, the technical guru today. So bear with me if I make any errors. We have a PowerPoint to share with you, and I appreciate Steve letting me go first so I can get ready for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Christy?
I'm Christy Sinner. I'm the superintendent in Hayden School District. I've been here 6 years. This is going into my 6th year. I was originally from Durango, Colorado, where I served as an elementary teacher as well as ELL specialist and English language acquisition, which is the same, acquisition specialist. I'm a director of SPED licensed. Currently, I am serving, I've been with McPherson since November. This will be my 3rd search. The 2 other searches that I've worked on here specifically with McPherson have been close to Colorado. That we were able to place 2 quality candidates, and with both of those, I'm also their executive coach in the continued phase of it. Prior to that, I also have been on several superintendent searches, and as Judy said, it is an honor to be able to serve. I have been to Provo many times. My mother was actually born in Provo, and I just finished my PhD a few years back at Utah State University in Logan, Colorado. So it was a pleasure to meet with several of the colleagues from there also. So It would be an honor to work alongside you.
Thank you, Christy. And I'm Steve Joel. I mentioned to you just briefly that I just retired about 2.5 months ago from a 12-year superintendent career at Lincoln, Nebraska. And prior to that, I had 4 other superintendencies. I've been involved in all aspects of education for a lot of years, and I'm one of the founders, or I should say, you know, one of the people that actually has been a part of Mac and Jake for the last 25 years. I sit on the executive board, and I've done more than 50 searches around the country. They've all been successful, and in many of the states. So we are delighted to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation. And as many of you, some of you know, I know Keith knows, Norm Ritter has purchased McPherson Jacobson from Tom Jacobson, and we are now in a process that I believe is very engaging, very exciting. We're making some modifications, and I can assure you that the team that we put together for this search is as good as any team that's out there. So we're excited about this opportunity. Let us tell you about it and give you a chance to ask you some questions. And Judy, if you would, if you'd roll the PowerPoint, if you bear with us, you have our proposal. So we're not going to go through that, but we just want to hit some of the highlights.
And if you will just, as I said, just bear with me for a quick moment while I get this PowerPoint brought up, that we will be ready to go.
Thank you for the introductions that you did for us. We appreciate that. And thank you for your service to the students at Provo. It isn't easy being a school board member today, and it certainly isn't easy, it isn't easy anywhere. We know last year alone there were more than 900 superintendent vacancies in America. Sadly, there were a couple of dozen, maybe 3 dozen superintendents that were one and done. That fortunately we didn't have to do any of those, but it's just right now there's a supply and demand issue in the superintendency. I think you're well aware of that. We keep it going, Judy, please. Next slide. Yes. So there's our team. So we're a leading national firm. We started out as a mom and pop, doing small school districts in Nebraska. We started branching out. You can look at our resume in terms of the districts that we've done. I've been involved in most of the major searches that Mac and Jake has done, primarily because I'm very nationally networked through a lot of different organizations. And this is a recruiter's game, so it's really about getting the word out there and candidates having trust and confidence in us, because we have to be the ones that can explain to them or excite them about an opportunity that's been made available, but they also have to trust us that it's a good opportunity for them to get into. Superintendents today have lots and lots of opportunities and offers, and all they have to do is let a search company know that this might be a good year to leave, excuse me, and they'll have multiple offers. So we work really hard on vetting, on identifying characteristics, vetting, and then working with you to match up the right people. So if we hang our hat on anything, we hang it on the fact that our superintendents stay. I think we've got the best longevity record in the country, and quite frankly, we're proud of that. But I think it's because we work so hard on the front. So a couple belief statements. You may hear a couple of times, we believe that every single student is entitled to a high quality education. And as a sitting superintendent for a lot of years, and I know Christy would agree with this, and so would Judy, and so would anybody else. The reality of it is that when we have sustainability, we have quality leadership in the seat, really good things happen with your kids. So we take this work very seriously, and we want every one of our searches to be successful, but we also know that they take work, and you'll hear more about our models and how we ensure that, one, the superintendent gets off on the right foot, and two, we're able to sustain that. We don't hire superintendents, you do. We will bring you the most well-suited applicants that meet your criteria, and we'll work you through a selection process, but you hire them. And every now and then, boards don't make good selections, and I'll just be honest with you, but it is what it is, but that's also why we have a pretty robust guarantee.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So more than 85% of our superintendents are around after 5 years. And by the way, the national average for suburban superintendents is about 4.2 years. So we feel anytime we defeat that, we're in great shape. 45% have been there 15 years or more. And I can honestly tell you, I have several that I've been working with for 15 years that are still growing and developing, which is really exciting for me. So the amount of investment is $38,600, and you've got that in your proposal. And we'll share with you in a few seconds what that entails. But for that, you get our first through fifth phase, 5 phases of our superintendent search process. The advertising that we've identified here, including ALAS, which is the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, as we looked at your demographics and your district. This includes 2 days of in-person stakeholder meetings, and then online stakeholder input surveys that we'll conduct. We want to collect every single voice in Provo with regard to the direction of the district and what they're seeking from the superintendent. And I think we do a very good job of that. We're going to video interview for you the top candidates that we believe are most closely match and align with your characteristics. And we give you a chance to meet them on the day that we come back and provide their names to you and their resumes and, of course, their applications and credentials. Criminal background checks, travel expenses for scheduled trips to the school district, and then office expenses. So the nature of the world today is there are districts that like to do virtual only, and the 38-6 is boots on the ground, where we actually will work with your folks. Christy will talk a little bit more about what that looks like. Excuse me, Judy will. But we give you that option if in fact you want. So 38.6 is the investment, and that gets you everything that's there. And certainly in our proposal, we have a price match as well too for comparable services. So there's the phases, and I'm just going to ask my colleagues to walk through them. First one I'll do, which is we would love to have a meeting in the next couple of weeks with you to establish from you the characteristics that you're seeking in the next superintendent. We use a consensus building approach, and it's really about what are you looking for? And you're going to be unique to any other district that we've worked with or that's out there right now. You are starting early. I think that's a major advantage right now in the marketplace. And we'll work with you on those timelines and those target dates. And we were talking earlier today, there isn't any reason why you couldn't be ready for interviews mid-January. Or earlier if you wanted, but mid-January is really a good time. It's the perfect time because superintendents are thinking about moving are usually Christmas holidays to get their paperwork in place and start doing their research. And then January is when the first wave of the really good jobs and the opportunities that you're afforded because your superintendent gave you plenty of notice to be able to jump into the environment. And then we'll determine those media advertising venues that are most pertinent to you. So that's phase one. That's one meeting. It's about a 3-hour meeting with you, and 1 or 2 or 3 of us will come up there, but we could do that virtually as well too. All right, phase two.
Phase 2 is where we get the input of your stakeholders, and you will hear Steve and Christy and I talk with you a lot about our very transparent process. And one of the things that we feel very strongly about is the importance, assuming that you are in agreement with that, the importance of hearing from your stakeholders. So we work with you. One of the things we will want to do is identify a point of contact in your district with whom we'll work. And we will work with your point of contact to identify representatives, almost like a focus group of people, and we will come to the district. You saw in the on that investment page, Steve pointed out 2 days of stakeholder meetings. We will meet with teachers, and you're a district of over 13,000 students, so probably we might meet with elementary teachers in one grouping. We probably would meet with middle school and high school teachers in another grouping. We'll meet with parents, community leaders, students, classified staff. We want to hear from all of the voices in your district, and we ask 4 questions. The questions we ask are, what are the good things about your community? What are the good things about your district? What are the qualities and characteristics you're looking for in your next superintendent? And what issues should your new superintendent be aware of as he or she comes into the district? Those are the 4 questions we ask. And we ask those of these stakeholder groups. However, we also hold a couple of evening meetings, or if there's a better time for your community, and we would work with you to figure that out, where anyone is welcome to come to those meetings where we ask those same 4 questions, and the 3 of us would facilitate those meetings. In addition to that, you saw when Steve went through the things that your investment includes, you saw online surveys. We put out an online survey that runs about a week, and the survey asks the same 4 questions. The survey is completely anonymous. The results go directly to Mac and Jake. It's through SurveyMonkey, and the results are really quite interesting. You will find this entire report very informative, we believe. And what we do is we put everything together. We will come back and meet with you or do it virtually, whatever is your preference, and we'll provide you with an executive summary of what we learned. Usually, boards of education and the new superintendent find this information to be particularly helpful. You know, what are the good things? What are things we need to work on? What are we hearing from our stakeholders? And this becomes very helpful also as we work through the process of trying to recruit applicants and develop interview questions and so forth. Additionally, as part of phase 2, we work with you to develop a promotional brochure that's going to describe your demographics. It's going to point out the outstanding features. It's going to list those criteria that you'll work on in phase 1 when we come back, when we come to meet with you, mentioned in a couple of weeks, to really nail down what are the things you're looking for in your new superintendent. We also want to get the application going so that we can post the position, advertise it, and really start recruiting applicants when we get contacted by people, because one of the really unique things that we think really sets us apart at Mac and Jake, the minute a position is posted, every single consultant in Mac and Jake, and there are about 125 of us, gets notified of the opening, because we have consultants all over the country, and we want them to know of the opening in Provo as well, because education is a very tight.
You went mute, Judy.
Steve,
Okay, we lost her.
maybe you can pitch in, Steve.
Okay, Judy, let's advance the slides. We went mute.
I don't think she could probably hear us either.
Okay, so let's go to phase 3, Christy.
Okay, so I can talk about it, and when she gets it up, we'll talk a little more on it and detail it. So in phase 3 is when the applications start coming in. So when the applications come in, we read every single one of them. We don't wait till the end of closing. We immediately start. When we receive applications, we evaluate them and make sure that everything is in there that needs to be, and we align it to the criteria. We keep notes on every applicant, and as applicants come in, depending on what the board would want, if you want a weekly or every other week update of the number of applicants, we're happy to do that for you as well, just to keep you up on it. We get applicants and we're starting to narrow them down. We do reference checks, and they're not just surface reference checks. We have a set of standards questions. We always start with who they have listed, because people are always listed for it, but candidates won't put somebody that would not give them a positive reference. So we start digging. When we're done with the reference check, we said, who else should we contact? So we just keep going as many times as we need to until we make sure we have consistent information on those checks, both the strengths and the weaknesses. And we do share all that information with the board. From there, we'll share with the board the top candidates, and we will do pre-interviews with them, as well as we will do a video that we talked about earlier so the board can see all that. We'll share all the information with the board. We'll give our top recommendation, and this will go based on the criteria and characteristics that the board wanted. The board will, like I said, have every application. If there's somebody else, if we have information on them that you might want to look at, we are happy to do that as well. But that is the board's determination, but we will continue with what the characteristics were. During this time, we also work on interview questions. We do not just get a standard set of interview questions and say, here's what the board needs to ask. We work directly with the board to curtail those questions based on what information you are seeking to make sure you hire the quality candidate that you are looking for that'll fit the community and your school district needs. We will provide examples, options, but we work with you on developing those to make sure you get that information. We do generally start with an opening one that most districts like of why Provo, what is bringing them to the community, and then closing is generally what kind of questions they have, which are also very important. And as we talked about throughout the process, we keep all of our applicants notified throughout all. If they're not selected to go forward with the board, we will notify them so there isn't any questions and they're not reaching out to the board saying, hey, why didn't I get this? We have kept them updated throughout. We will continue in phase 4 of reviewing those interview questions, making sure. There's also the process, this is up to the board, if they want to have their stakeholders create questions as well. Found it to be very informative, and the groups tend to create different interview questions. We'll come back to depending on what kind of stakeholder groups you want and how you want to do that. Again, it goes to then the selecting the interview of how many groups you want to have. There's community group, teacher groups with those different interviews. We will help set up the process depending on the number of candidates you have. If the board would like to do semi-finalists, we'll help in assisting with that. That is usually just the board before we go into finalist candidates. And then we'll help through that entire process, setting up meetings if they're bringing their spouse and just getting everything together for you. And again, we'll contact all the candidates and help do that. It is really important for that in having, when the candidates come, just that first impression. It's important for you to see how people will perceive them on the first impression in the community. And part of that stakeholder group and input is also to show off your community and to show off your school district and what you have to offer during that time. I kind of did go to the next slide, so you can go ahead and go over, Judy. Thanks on that. So that's with bringing it and scheduling it. So depending on the format that the board would like, we do help schedule that, make all the arrangements, and keep everybody informed the whole time. As Steve said earlier, we do final background checks. If there's additional things that you do require, we can do that. There has been a few districts that want additional background checks prior to with all the finalists, so they know that information going in. So that is optional as well that we can do for you. So, and again, at the end, we do reach out personally to every candidate that was brought forward, and whether they make it forward or make it further or not, we keep them informed the whole way.
Thank you, Christy. Candidates appreciate our process because we do communicate very readily with them. We're open, we're honest, we're transparent. And I think if you were to check with candidates, they would verify that. Phase 5, what I'm proud of, primarily because as an active superintendent when I joined the firm, I felt like this is going to give us the longevity. And that is 1 through 4 gets you superintendent. Phase 5 is we're going to come in and work with you and that superintendent to create some team building and also to set the stage for developing performance objectives. And those performance objectives have really made a difference in the searches that we've done. So that recreates the work, the priority work that the board and the superintendent have agreed upon, at least for that first year, in terms of what's going to be done. And as I was looking at your website last night, I saw where you have board goals that are about ready to be revised, I would imagine. And your timing is to get them right with the next superintendent, and that will play nicely into this process. And superintendents appreciate that so much that we often get invited back to do that in subsequent years as they begin to renew that. We're trying in America get from a checklist of items to more performance-based evaluations for districts. And the centerpiece of that is communication, right? Two-way communication. What's working, what's not working, what can we do to address it? And we work with you and your superintendent to really create that positive infrastructure. So those are our phase 5s. We've gone through, next slide please, Judy. We have some additional services, and I don't need to spend any time on that. If you're interested, we'll talk with you about that when we start working with you. I mentioned briefly, we think about 2 months, 2.5 months. We can get this going, shoot for mid-January if you're interested. And we're turnkey, so we do it all, and we're going to learn about your district probably very, very thoroughly. Because we're going to get that from your admin team, your central office, your staff, your employees that support the classroom, and of course your community groups. Next slide, Judy. Okay, so there, just one more time, 38.6. That's boots on the ground, and 3 things that we believe separates us: transparency, and at every front, sustainability of leadership, and then high involvement of stakeholders. And if when you're done working with us, I promise you, your stakeholders will appreciate the fact that we know how to value, put value on them in the process, and you'll have ownership.
Steve, we lost you.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
This is some good stuff.
I can't hear you either, sorry. We're gonna check our text here.
Nothing. Still.
Do you want to put in the chat, just have them restart the meeting? We can ask you.
We can hear you now.
Oh,
great.
Here we are.
Okay. So what I summarize very quickly, that what makes us unique are those 3 things that were on the slide, but also the fact that when we're done with the search, your stakeholders will feel, and genuinely feel, appreciated, valued, and that they provided quality input. And so our goal is for your next superintendent to come in, and people will be familiar with them, and then they hit the ground running with you with that base file. So we'll stop there and answer any questions you have.
Okay, are there any questions?
Have you done any searches in Utah that you can just give us a district that you've worked with?
I have not done any searches in Utah. Christy, are you aware, or Judy?
I have not, no.
Well, this is probably our first foray into the state. Now, I will tell you, we've done many searches in California. I led in the Phoenix area most of the major metropolitan searches in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then we've got a contract with the Colorado School Board Association in Colorado. So Wyoming, I did Cody, Wyoming last year. I've been, so we're all around Utah. We just have not had an opportunity, which I promise you will get us even more motivated to make this the most successful search that your state's had in quite some time.
So I will add, the company has done 3 searches in Park City School District not for superintendent, but for chief academic officer, operations officer, and director of talent manager. So the company has done some in Utah.
Thank you, Chris.
Could you just clarify, I'm just a little confused on the 28.9, the 38.6, and then if any additional things would take us above that 38.6 if we added on, or if that 38.6 was a cap with those additional add-ons?
Yeah, that 38.6 is a cap. It's not to an exceed amount.
Okay.
And what we have to do now with travel expenses is try to estimate a little bit high, and I'll tell you they typically come in a little bit lower. But if you were interested in virtual, I mean, certainly we could lower that price. But honestly, if you can do it, boots on the ground, have us work with you folks directly really is more strategic. And the extras would be, if you wanted us to negotiate a contract or, I forget right now what those extra 3 were. Any additional advertisements, which we don't think you'll need, would be additional on top of that. If you wanted, I worked with a district last year in another state that wanted 1 extra meeting with us, and that was an extra, but don't anticipate that happening here.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for them?
Can you give us a sense of what you know about Utah? There are things that are unique about every state. Can you tell us what is unique about Utah?
Well, first of all, you're beautiful. It's a beautiful state, and it's highly attractive. You know that people care very deeply about education in Utah. I know that there's a very the patrons that you work with are they have high values and believe in human beings and everything that education should be representing. You're a conservative state, like so many states in the country right now. We're dealing with an awful lot of that, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's good. But you're also you're accountability. You're an accountable state, which means that you just can't talk the game. You have to be able to show the results. So I visited Utah when I first came to Lincoln because you were on the cutting edge of vocational education. And I was very, very impressed with the things that you were doing at that time that we were able to bring into to our community as a result of that. So reputation in the country is very good, and I think your results as a state, that while there's always improvement, I think Utah shows okay, but certainly in Provo, there's going to be a push for even greater results. And that's the game for the superintendent these days, right? It's about visibility, it's about connection, it's about developing appropriate infrastructure, hiring, retaining, developing high-quality individuals. But at the end of the day, you have to report to your stakeholders, and you do that with student results and opportunities for students and how well prepared we are for the next steps in their life.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to add to what Steve said. I know that Provo itself has gotten a lot of accolades for being a very low crime rate city, as well as a place that is highly desirable to live in. I read some of the things that you had on your website about one of the best places. It was rated one of the best places to live. There was a lot of desirability for living there. You also, it looks like you all have really put a great emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion in your district, which I think makes you highly desirable as well. So I think that's a little bit, my response, a little veer off of the question that you posed, but I think it does speak to what we know, not just about Utah, but about Provo and about Provo City School District.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate you spending the time with us, and we will be in touch.
Thank you very much. Good luck, and it's been our pleasure today, and appreciate all your hard work on behalf of kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my opinion is you're not going to see a lot of difference in terms of the overall plan. Some personalities will vary. So do look for the differences between the different groups, because there will be some that structurally they'll probably play out to be fairly similar. What you just saw here is a layout. That's exactly what I went through in Pensacola. That exact format.
Is this a group that you were hired?
I've worked with them before. I've never been hired through them before. So I should
Lorraine
hold a
Associates
grudge.
is the one that did yours?
The one that did mine was Northwest Leaders Associate and Richard Stoll. So they worked together.
It feels like when I was reading through these proposals, the major difference was, like, they just give us a not to exceed amount, they take care of all the travel and all that, and the rest of them just say, this is our amount and you do all the travel. Like, it felt like that was a big difference. Did anybody else notice any big?
Yeah, some of included versus with add-on is different between the
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Ray and Associates. Ray and Associates did Salt Lake. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear us?
We can hear and see you.
Is everybody on from your team?
Yes.
Okay, well, we would like to just start with some introductions, and and I'm getting feedback.
Terrific. Good afternoon, Provo City School Board. It's our pleasure to be here today to be able to share with you the process that we use for superintendent searches. I'm Jan Vesley. I'm a recently retired superintendent from the Phoenix area. And I have been in public education for 45 years, serving in just about every capacity imaginable in those 45 years in 4 different districts. So it's my pleasure to be here today to assist in this presentation. Ann.
Hi, my name is Ann Schultz, and I am honored to be with you today. I come to you with 30 years in education. I served as a superintendent of schools in Wisconsin. I was a principal at all levels at middle, high school, and elementary, and I am now a charter school leader in the state of Colorado, just outside of Denver.
All right.
And I think we're going to share our PowerPoint presentation if you're ready, or would you like to introduce yourselves? That would be terrific.
Okay. We'll start over here on the corner table. We're in a table, so we'll just raise our hands as we go along.
Thank you.
Gina. Gina. Terry, board member.
Derek Anderson, business administrator.
Keith Rattel, outgoing superintendent.
Melanie Hall, board president.
Rebecca Nielsen, board vice president.
I'm Jennifer Partridge, board member.
Nikkei Jensen, board member.
So nice to meet all of you. Thank you for your time today. And I think, do you want us to share the presentation if you can give Ann?
Yep.
Or if you want to share a email with me, I can share the presentation with anybody who is
You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, here.
There we go. Terrific. Well, I think we've already done our introductions, Ann, so we'll just move there's 2 people that we have not yet introduced, and if we go to the next slide, I'd like to introduce you to our entire team. We come to you as all of us are experienced public educators. Our RFP response includes a bio for each member of our team, so we won't spend a lot of time talking about each one of us, but the 2 individuals on that slide that are not present for the presentation is Mike Collins, who is the Ray & Associates president, and Kathy Schoenfelder, who is the vice president, both who represent us from our home office. We have people like Ann and I that work throughout the United States regionally, and so we work together as a team for regional superintendent searches. And Mike comes to us, he has had numerous years of experience as a school board member and a state board of education member. He brings tremendous experience and expertise to support board member needs throughout this process. Kathy works directly with district staff to make sure all deliverables are met, schedules are coordinated with your district representative, and meetings are secured. She works also with the superintendent candidates that you have selected for interviews to coordinate all of their interviews, any travel plans, etc. So we'll move to the next slide. And this slide just briefly talks a little bit about Ray & Associates experience. It's been in this business since 1975. Like Ann and I and our team who will be working on behalf of Provo School District, we have a strong recruitment network of associates who work throughout the United States. As shared, we have a full-time office staff that lifts the burden off of your district staff to support this process. And this is really the only business that Ray & Associates does. It's a primary business, and this experience has taught us that continual improvement of our process keeps us on the cutting edge of the profession. As you will see, we have a vetting process that allows no surprises on candidates. We provide you with a video recording of top candidates as a component of the application materials, and we use a scoring instrument, or what we call a matrix, to help build consensus with the board on potential candidates. As shared, we draw candidates from our national and regional applicants to ensure that we find candidates that are aligned to the profile that you have defined for your next superintendent. Through rigorous recruitment efforts, we typically recruit 40 plus applicants and secure approximately plus or minus 30 completed applications. Oftentimes we'll get applicants who start applications but don't always see it across the finish line. We nudge them, but typically we will get around 30 plus completed applications. We work closely with our applicants to maintain strong interest for well-qualified and aligned candidates. And we really want to assure you that this is your search and that we are going to support you through the entire process of this search. And if you look at the profile development slide, we really work on conducting individual board member in order to sort of create your advertising and the piece that's going to go out into all of our advertisement selections. We first conduct individual, Ann and I will conduct individual board member interviews so that we can really seek to understand what you are interested in terms of the profile and the criteria for your next superintendent. We take all of that information and we create an aggregate confidential board report that goes back to the board so that you can see collectively what the board interests are in terms of selecting your next superintendent. We also conduct stakeholder meetings, and again, the board drives this process. You identify who those stakeholders are that you would like us to conduct sort of focus group meetings, and we have a set of questions that we ask each stakeholder focus group and collect all of that data to be able to get you additional information from your stakeholder groups in terms of what the interests of those particular focus groups are for your next superintendent. You get to, again, define and drive who those stakeholder groups are. You know, typically it's, different groups from your district, parents. We oftentimes do a student group. There may be a community group that you define, but you get to define who those groups are, and then Ann and I and our team conduct those focus group meetings. We also collect online survey data, and you define who the survey is distributed to. And we call it our 31 characteristics or 31 quality survey, which goes out to the defined community that you identify. We collect all of that data, and then we roll up and aggregate the data and bring back to the governing board a very comprehensive report that shows you the reporting for each one of those groups, how they ranked the superintendent profile or characteristics on that survey. We also, during our focus group, collect stakeholder comments. Usually at the end of each focus group, we ask them, do you have any questions that are of interest that you would like for the board to ask of superintendent candidates? We just simply collect all of those comments and questions, and then we provide those in a report to the governing board as well. So you're seeing sort of the profile development happen through various stakeholder groups throughout your district. And once we get all of that information back, we then provide a comprehensive report and presentation to the governing board, which identifies all components of all of that data that we have collected. And collaboratively with the governing board, then you define what that profile would look like, and then we begin working with the district in the development of your profile, which would then be utilized again for all the recruitment and advertising purposes. It would be loaded onto our website. It would be shared obviously with any of the national and local advertisement campaigns that you identify, and that way we have very good information that is shared. In terms of the recruitment, once we have your profile done, in other words, you have identified what you're looking for in your candidate, and we have then all of that criteria as well as a salary range for the position. We will then begin an aggressive recruitment campaign, recruiting candidates from you throughout the United States, locally, within your district, whatever direction and guidance you have provided. We typically, we have a very robust website. We typically get over 28,000 hits each month with potential candidates who are seeking and looking for the positions that we've got advertised on our website. So of course we utilize that venue and that information as a part of our recruitment process. But Ann and I, just through our work and our experience, we also keep in contact with a lot of networks as well as all of our other individuals that work for our organization throughout the United States, and we recruit candidates through that network process as well. You're going to find out that we, in terms of our candidates, we offer a 2-year and a 5-year guarantee in terms of candidates. The 2-year guarantee, which we'll talk a little bit about later, ensures you that we want that candidate to be successfully placed and under contract with you for a minimum of 2 years. And if not, then Ray and Associates will conduct at no charge another recruitment process for you. And then we promise that we won't recruit any of if you're a selected candidate for a minimum of 5 years. We try to leave people alone and promise our clients that we will, in fact, not share any recruiting materials with them for a minimum of 5 years. We've talked a little bit about how many typical applications that we receive, and our commitment again is to candidate care, which allows us, we maintain a really strong relationship with all the candidates, and we always talk with our candidates throughout the process. It's about a match, and while this process may not be a match for you, we want to stay in contact with you because there will likely be another match down the road. So that keeps us to maintain a really strong candidate interest in many positions that we recruit for throughout any given year. And in terms of the candidates, is this yours, Ann? Or am I still on? In terms of the candidates, we screen candidates, so Ann and I will, once we have all the candidate applications and we are looking at those applications on an ongoing basis, we create a spreadsheet with your criteria within that spreadsheet, and we begin to screen those candidates and the criteria that you have given us and directed us to, so that on paper we can begin identifying candidates that would be a potential match for your district. We also do an extensive background investigation and internet checks of significant candidates. We are going to go through Google, Yahoo, Twitter, Facebook, and other media sources to see if we can find any information that may be detrimental or even positive. We then identify and screen down those candidates to roughly 8 to 12 top candidates, and we create what we call a candidate report for each individual. That has very comprehensive information that goes far beyond what you would see just in an application process. Not only is it going to include the research that we have done in terms of our vetting of the candidates, and we also conduct an interview with each of those candidates. So we're going to provide you a summary of that interview, a summary of what we were able to investigate and find out via our background checks. We're going to provide video interviews to the board. So we'll work with the governing board and allow you to help us identify questions that you would like the candidate to answer in a recorded video session that you will have as a component of their application materials. And then for the top candidates, we engage, so once you have done some narrowing down even further, you've probably done one round of interviews, you've narrowed the field down to potentially 2 to 3 of your top candidates. Then we do a complete criminal, civil litigation, Social Security, sex offender, motor vehicle record checks, and then verification of all educational degrees so that you know the candidates that you're moving forward are highly qualified and we've completed all of those background investigations for you. Oh, Ann, I think you're on mute.
We can't hear anything. Is Ann speaking?
She is unmuted.
Our end again? Yeah.
Can you hear us?
We can't hear Jan anymore. Yep, hold on, sorry.
Can you hear me now? I
Yes.
muted myself,
Yes.
so.
Good job.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Don't leave the room,
Sorry. Once again, we have identified and brought forth those top candidates, as well as we'll bring forth all of their application materials. We'll bring forth their videos that we have had them prepare. We'll bring forth a consensus building matrix, which is a scoring instrument. We're going to go through, so Ann and I will do confidential reports on each of those candidates with the governing board. And then we will take you through a process which we call a consensus building matrix. It's a scoring instrument to really be able to help you deliberate and discuss and reach a consensus using that matrix on which candidates you want to move forward for the semifinal and final interviews. And then we, again, work hand in hand with the governing board to finalize the development of the board interview questions that you would like to use for both the first interview as well as for a final interview. And then we create all of the scoring materials for you to be able to utilize. You will conduct the interviews. We will give you the materials in which to do that. Then we step in after you've conducted your interviews and then take you through that scoring process to help reach consensus about which candidates you would like to move forward. We will also assist you, as we've shared with the interviews, the selection of candidates, meaning that we use, again, a consensus matrix format to assist the board. If necessary, with the final contractual agreement, typically the district has an attorney you work with on that, but certainly we can support that in any way. We've talked about the 2-year guarantee on the superintendent search. And we'll also provide a board self-assessment survey for long as the new superintendent is employed at no cost, and help in any way that we can with the new superintendent in terms of their transition and building the new leadership team, or in collaboration with the current leadership team. And this is just a little information. I think you had some quotes in your proposal just about the districts. In the Southwest, over the last couple of years, we've conducted 28 different searches in what we call the Southwest, which is where Ann and I do a lot of our work. And this is just some quotes from some of the districts recently that we've worked with. And then you're going to see just sort of a summary page. And the summary just sort of gives a little bit of information about summarizing some of what we've already shared, but want to assure you that we customize every search to meet the specific needs of our clients. We have the largest professional recruiting network in the country. We have a highly qualified full-time staff that is readily accessible to respond to both clients and candidates. We maintain a large pre-screened database of traditional and non-traditional candidates from across the country. So one of the questions as we work with the board is we will go through a process to define, again, some of those characteristics the governing board feels are essential for your next superintendent. We aggressively recruit candidates who closely match your profile. And we provide attractive, user-friendly, and informative website that allows candidates to access application materials online. We receive more applications than any search firm in the nation. We interview, which I've shared, each individual board member to provide information and insight into the development of the profile. We collect and organize community and staff input when desired by the board and provide a report that is highly useful in establishing the position criteria. In addition, we offer an online survey in various languages, and we will provide a link to the survey to post on the district's website so we can collect that survey data for you. And then we, again, offer a disaggregated report by each subject area group. So for example, we'll have several criteria that when the candidates are logging into the survey, they can identify themselves. So you can see what the teachers identified, what parents identified, what administrators identified, what a community member identified in terms of their criteria. We offer the option to have our office design and develop the promotional application and flyer for the position if that's something that you would like us to do. And we have the most complete and comprehensive investigative system to ensure the quality of the candidates that we are moving forward. And we have talked about our unique and successful consensus building process for boards in terms of your selection of your candidate. And we've been highly successful in providing a large, diverse pool of candidates in all of our searches. So that's just a little bit of a summary, and Ann and I are here to answer any questions that you might have about the process.
Right. Questions?
I've got one.
Go ahead.
I noticed in the stage 2, in stage 2, you talk, you kind of summarize about meeting with employees and stakeholders that that we identify. Would that part also include any kind of survey to the community besides like the morning and the evening forums, or would it just be the forums and the meetings with them?
So we do a survey, and that's when I talked about the 31 quality survey.
Okay.
And we survey the board members, and we give you a link, we create the survey, we give you a link to post on your website, or you can email it directly. It depends on how wide you want the collection database to be. I mean, if you want it everybody, then you can post the link on your website, and we put a timeline around that. If you want it to go directly to your parents, you can email it to them, to your staff, you can email it to them. So we let you define, but we do a comprehensive survey. And the survey also allows the participants to provide feedback or comments. And so we aggregate all of the data, so it's very easy for you to see what the teachers' preferences were, what the administrators' preferences were, what parents' preferences were. But then we also give you all of the comments for you to be able to review as well. So that's over and above the focus group. So we do the survey because we feel like the survey really gives you a broad spectrum of information that's easily and readily available in a report that's easy for you to digest. And then the focus groups are just another opportunity to get some very targeted data for you that, again, we conduct those focus groups, and then we provide a report for each focus group that we meet with.
I remember you saying that now, and I apologize for asking about it twice.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
That's right. I remember now. Thank you.
Right, any other questions for this group? Okay.
I have a general question, maybe what's a superintendent guarantee? Like, does that mean if we don't like them, we can return them for a full refund or exchange them for a better model?
We work really hard to work with you in the selection of a great match. But in the event something happens in the first 2 years, whether it's you saying no thank you, or whether it's a superintendent saying no thank you, and you do an opt-out in terms of the contract, if that happens within the first 2 years, then we will conduct at no charge another search process for you for the selection of a new superintendent. We hope that never happens, but on occasion it does.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I saw that you guys worked with Salt Lake City, and have you guys done anything else in Utah before?
I think Salt Lake City, and I think years ago we may have in Ogden, but that was before I was involved with Ray and Associates. I'm looking at my list to see. But I think Salt Lake City is the most recent.
It is.
Clark County. Oh, there she is. There's Ann.
Yeah,
we there you.
That is the most recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other further questions?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to also reassure you that we work really in partnership and hand in hand with the board throughout this entire process. We typically have an identified district individual that we work with for a lot of the nuts and bolts kinds of things that we need to get done, such as scheduling meetings, so on and so forth. But we typically have a conversation with the board president on a weekly basis, if that's possible, so that we can just keep you well informed through the board president of where we are in the process and what is currently happening. We do multiple board meetings throughout the process, and we will coordinate all of that with you. You can see we provided in our proposal a proposed timeline, but again, we work with you depending upon when you want the end date to be. Then we backwards design everything that we do to align and to match your preferred end date for the selection of your candidate. Ann, anything else that you would like to add?
I think that really that partnership is so important to boards as you're walking through it. We're always available to you. We're a text or a phone call away if you have any questions, or at any time throughout the process, one of us is always available.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you presenting to us today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. It's so appreciated.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, next we have Hazard Young Tia.
Yeah, just, for the board members in the room, I've worked with Ray and Associates on two positions that I applied for. I was in the finals for both of them. Unless they've changed their business, or maybe it's got something to do with who the search consultant was at the time, I never heard back from, like, for future searches, or even feedback on the one that I just did not get. And again, it wasn't like I was screened out in the first 50 applicants. I was one of the 3 or 4, 2 or 3 finalists.
I have a question actually before we start the next one for you, since you've been through this process a few times. Do candidates make profiles of each of these consulting firms? Like, are we going to get the same pool of candidates no matter who we go with, if we choose to go with one of these?
If there are people out there looking for positions, they're probably checking all of the different websites. Plus, they will post in the American Association of School Administrators magazine and some other common trade magazines.
So it's highly likely that we're going to get the same.
Other school districts have noted a less than a 5% difference in the names that they get. So if they get 20, there's going to be one name that they don't get, and it's never one that they do consider.
There are outliers that don't carry forward from one search consultant to another.
So you're saying whoever applied for Alpine a couple years ago is probably going to apply for ours, right? Like that's
maybe not Alpine.
Not, I think
year, yes.
I think people look for a fit, but I mean there are districts that will employ 2 of these folks, or their neighboring districts, like in Idaho. There are a couple of different school districts in Boise, and they actually just compared notes. They go, hey, who did you get? Who did you get? And they went, oh, we didn't get that guy. Did you see? And but but there are people who apply for Outline that won't apply for us. There are people who
Right.
apply for us that would absolutely not apply for Outline.
Right.
I mean, they're.
I wanna keep the ball rolling, so,
Yep.
yeah, so we get those.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us?
I can.
Great, is there anyone else coming from your team?
The Flores was joining me. She said she tried the link and it was still loading. So I'm going to text her and say,
Oh, she
she's
said
here.
she's
Just
coming. She's in our waiting room. Oh, she's right there.
there she.
Okay, so we'll do some intros first. Is that okay?
That would be terrific. Lisa, your mic is muted, but why don't you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Lisa Flores, and I am so happy to be with you here today. Thank you for having Hank and I. I am a little bit of an odd duck when it comes to working in this search space, and that is that a lot of the people that we work with on the HYA team are former superintendents, and I instead am someone who has sat in the seat of a member of the Board of Education. I am from Denver and served on the Denver Public School Board, and went through a superintendent search myself. We actually hired HYA, and I leaned in pretty hard to work with HVitro and make sure that we had a very diverse slate of candidates. And afterwards, they asked me to join the team, and here I am with a lot more search experience under my belt, and very much happy to be here. I'll have a chance to weigh in a little bit more about some of my strengths when I bring to the team, but great to be here with you today.
Thanks, Lisa. And my name's Hank Jamitro. I'm the Chief Search Associate for Hazard Young and Atia. And you have our bio information and background. I'm just going to leave it as I'm a lifelong educator, started off as a special education teacher, and ended my career as a superintendent in one district for 13 years. And for the last 12 or so years, I've been doing superintendent searches all around the country, and I've done about 60 of them over that period of time. So we're going to take about 10-12 minutes to hopefully go through a very quick overview of the materials that we sent you and try to leave the majority of the time for your questions, because those are the really important items that we should be addressing today. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can all see it.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, great. So our firm has been in the search business for a long time, and we're one of the national leaders of it. The two really important things that I think set us apart from other recruiting firms that all know how to recruit candidates is our work with boards and our ability to customize the search to meet your particular needs, and to develop the search around the processes and the elements that you want to make sure you include. And the second really important issue is the tools and processes and information that we're able to gather through a comprehensive community engagement process. We're going to talk briefly about a few of those, but that part of the search process is really essential to get a deep understanding of your community, because your major responsibility in this process is to really understand the needs of your organization, and you know many things about the organization already, but gathering some specific information about the superintendent search will be particularly helpful, and we can help with that process. And then the other side of that, in terms of customizing the search, is to really help you by providing you all the information that you need in terms of background information, reference checking, helping you develop a script and all the things that are necessary to help you find the very best match for the needs of your school district. In our typical search process, there's 4 phases of a search. Engagement is really the gathering of information and learning about your organization. The recruit phase is really trying to find candidates that are going to match the profile that you're going to develop as part of that engagement process. And then the third phase is for us to facilitate your work as you interview candidates, narrow the field, try to learn as much as you can about them, and ultimately select your preferred candidate. And then finally, we're happy to help you with the process of transition from your current leader to your new leader in your organization. And the engagement piece of it, I mentioned earlier, and there's a whole variety of tools that we use, from town hall meetings, focus group meetings, an online survey, individual board interviews. Many of those can be online if you want them to. Some of them you might want them to be in person. During this period of COVID, search firms and school districts have found all kinds of new ways to engage with their communities, and so we can use a variety of tools to do that. One of the tools that we do use is an online survey, and that community engagement survey allows people who cannot attend a meeting or participate in a Zoom session or whatever to still share their information. And we use that information for the board in terms of identifying the state of the district as well as the desired leadership skills that are necessary in the next superintendent. And we disaggregate that information so the board understands that different stakeholder groups may have different preferences and priorities in those areas. The other thing, as we move into the recruit phase of the search, one of the things that is really helpful is that we are a national firm, so we have associates all around the country who interact with potential candidates all the time. We also, if you've taken the time to look at our website, you'll see that we list all superintendent searches across the country, whether we're doing them or not, on our website. And the reason we do that is because we want potential leaders or current leaders who might be looking to make a move, or just educators who want to keep abreast of what's going on, to know what's happening in the field in terms of vacancies. And candidates or individuals can create a profile on our system so that they can be kept abreast of what openings exist. And that national reach really helps us understand who are the potential leaders out there that might be a good match for the Provo City School District. And behind all of that, the survey instruments, the tools that we use, we have a deep bench of support in our home office regarding the analytics that we use to do those surveys, to track the online hits on our website about who's looking at your vacancy, the amount of time that they're spending on it. We can make all of that information available to you so that you know how the search is going. One of the other things that I think is really important is our firm's commitment to diversity, just as your district has a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we try to understand the dynamics of your school district as we start the search process. That's one of the reasons we spend so much time with community engagement and really try to use tools and resources to reach out to your various communities. It's also one of the reasons we try to create a diverse team to work with you to reflect the demographics of your community and to understand those and to reach out to those individuals. During the select phase, this gets back to what I had mentioned before, and that is the information about gathering background information about the candidates so that you have a deep and comprehensive understanding of their experience and what others think of them through both a professional vetting experience in terms of provided references, but also talking with our associates who may know individuals and to get the unspoken information that sometimes doesn't appear within the written materials. And then the final phase is in terms of a transition of services from your current leader to your new leader. There's lots of things that we can assist you with and help you understand those needs in your organization, and hold a meeting with you to help lay out a transition plan, help you with onboarding the new superintendent and making those announcements in your community. So before I summarize, Lisa, I just want to turn it over to you for a second. Is there anything about any of those steps in the process that you want to add? Any thoughts about?
I would say that one of the things that really distinguishes HYA from other firms is that we really do take the time to lean in and listen to community about what is important to them. And I think that in terms of from a board perspective, it's nice to be able to talk to your own community and know that they have been heard, that what they find important in this search has been noted and received and integrated into the profile that we put together in terms of who we're looking for to ultimately place in your superintendency. I think that would be one of the pieces.
Thanks, Lisa. In the proposal, we sent you information about this fee of $32.5 for the search services, and we list out all of our guarantees. Some of the important ones are that fee is that we don't charge on an hourly or a daily basis typically. We charge a fee to complete the search process to your satisfaction. Hopefully that's done during the first round of interviews and selection, but if you don't find the right candidate during the first round of interviews, we're committed to following through with that and bringing you other candidates for your consideration at no additional cost in terms of completing that process. Because we want you to be delighted with whoever you find as your next superintendent candidate and feel like that is the very best person to do the job for you as you move forward. And the other guarantees are really spelled out in the proposal information that we sent you. Just in closing, as I mentioned before, our ability to customize a search. Some communities want an open search and want community committees engaged in the search and in the interview process with candidates. Other communities and boards want a confidential search, and they're the ones that are making the decision, and they keep the names confidential. Some use a hybrid approach at a certain point in time that they might engage some community members in helping with the decision-making process. All of those options and details in terms of defining the search process is something that we lay out for you as questions and possibilities during the planning meeting, and can share information about the pros and cons of various choices that you can make. But ultimately, the search needs to be directed by you in terms of how you want it to work. You know your community much better than we do, and you know what are the most important things that should be included in the process to have your community feel good about the next superintendent that you select. So that level of customization, that level of involvement, engaging as many people as possible, the level of providing feedback, that whole community engagement process is designed to create a leadership profile and a set of desired characteristics that you can give back to your community to share, to say this is what we're looking for in our next superintendent. And to keep information flowing to your community so that the decision is as transparent as you want it to be as you move forward. So the tools that we have to do that with analytics, the diversity that we have amongst our associate pool, and the diversity that we've been able to establish with the slates that we've been able to recruit for school districts, I think are a testament to our commitment to to boards of education and to helping them find the very best person for their new superintendent. And with that, I'm going to close it out and spend the majority of time, hopefully, on your questions.
All right, board, what questions do you have?
Can you tell us, maybe even go through a use case for that community engagement piece, and what might be different about that than other firms?
Well, typically, if it's a confidential search, the community engagement is extensive in terms of, we typically spend 3-4 days in a school district reaching out to the people that you identify that you want us to talk with. We have the online survey to do that. Lisa has many times conducted seminars and forums and focus groups in Spanish so that your Spanish-speaking community can engage directly in that process. If there's other languages that are necessary, we try to customize the meetings around those languages. Some school districts use translation services or technology to do that. Sometimes we try to find an associate who can speak a language if there's a certain language that you would like us to hold a community forum in. And then I think the real difference is the leadership profile report that comes out of that, because all that information that is aggregated is presented to you in a report that defines it all and includes all the survey information as well, and tries to identify the major themes that we heard, the major needs that we heard, so that you have as deep of an understanding as you can about what your community is saying to you. Lisa, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, let me add just a little bit of color to this. I would say, in terms of that community engagement, we start with the board. Those are one-on-one interviews so that we really can gain from your insight. We work with you to to develop that list of stakeholders that we're reaching out to. A lot of times now you want to have a more intimate conversation with the cabinet. A lot of times, you want to make sure that your teacher's voice, I'm thinking right now about internal voices for the district. You want to make sure that that teacher voice is heard, make room for the student voice. I think it's really important, too, that some of those supportive services also have a voice that's heard in that process. But then also working with you as folks who really know your community well. Of course, those external players that really should kind of be at the table and be heard. And quite frankly, I know from working with Hank, we work with a district to set that list, but we work such that we really make ourselves available. And if there's a key person that just isn't able to, make it to a focus group or a session, we'll pick up the phone and spend some time with that individual to really gain their insight. And now, as Hank had said, survey is a big part of that too, but as Hank had said, I think that we have, we're pretty skilled, pretty intuitive, pretty insightful, good listeners who really do tease out what are those common themes. You might have some outlier comments, but it's like, what are those common themes that people are raising or bringing forward and saying, yes, this is truly what the strengths are of the district that we want to build on. Here are some of the challenges. We need a special skill set or set of expertise, to come in and really address this issue moving forward. And, I think that we really have produced a pretty high quality product between the two of us in terms of what we have shared with districts in the past, something that I think we're really proud of.
Just one other.
Does that answer your? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Lisa. Just one other quick thought on that. So that's the initial community engagement pieces of gathering that information. Some boards like to use community committees or staff committees to do some interviewing and provide input to the board before their decision is made. We have facilitated those processes and those interviews for school districts based on the desire that the board has established, and have protocols to do that, either in a public process or in a confidential process that the information that the community committee is gathering is only shared with the board.
right, well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Good luck with your decision.
Great.
We wish you all the best in your search process, and we hope you find a great leader to lead your school district into the future.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Okay.
They're all just slightly different in certain aspects.
We will have time later in the board meeting to discuss all of this, because I know that we're short on time for a lot of that. How are we doing? Are they in the?
We have a few minutes, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we're a few minutes ahead, which is great.
Wow, this is the best. Now it's time for the presentation part, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, does it run out? Okay.
Does anybody remember off the top of their head, McPherson have some kind of non-recurring guarantee?
They had a guarantee in
They-
the back.
They wouldn't send, they wouldn't list somebody on their email list when they're like, hey, they wouldn't headhunt somebody themselves.
That's what I'm saying. If they place someone, did they say how long they're not gonna go back and
5
recruit?
years.
They were 5 years, okay.
I don't think they said that directly, but they were proud of how many people have been in the position they placed them in for 5 years and then for 10 and 15, so I would guess they would purposely not recruit.
BYU just said yes to October 12th. So Timpview High School will be able to play their senior game at the old stadium over here. So that's really big news.
Good news.
Just the one game.
Yeah.
Are they charging us a fee?
I would enter
Yes,
your own cut,
but it'll
toss me off.
That is a very good question.
I know that I personally had some issues and I just had to go through and remove it and then re-add it on the personal my cell phone.
Weird. By the way, works in the Louvre, works in Edinburgh, mostly downtown, works at Oxford, works at Imperial College London. It's crazy. What do you think?
Education roaming, that's.
I had no expectation of that. That's pretty awesome.
I brought my snacks,
Very
but
impressive. Just
I know, but they are.
Alex always has to bring
just to make sure people
That
have
one.
something.
Oh, actually, calendar.
Are there any stickers? As long as there's stickers.
Swedish fish at home.
Girl.
Who's just there, Carmel?
Drugged.
Sold.
She's really.
Jennifer, do you want
So they
any?
finished a little early.
Yeah.
Pass it. We're not very good at
Great.
questions, but I feel like their presentations are all very basic and like.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is the model.
You
have
a
great friend.
Yeah, I think we have some, you know. So good. Everyone loves you.
Great.
Terry.
How are you?
I brought
You were really
some
nice.
more.
Thank
There's-
you.
there's-
I have some snacks too, Terry.
Oh,
You
no,
look like a real
Alex,
granola.
I can really good stuff.
Oh.
So, we have a friend in my neighborhood on Oak. Who's
I'm
that?
saying I have real
The Santa.
granola bars.
So they don't have
Real.
enough for
No.
They came over to the
So we're gonna be eating this.
Terrific.
We don't care. We live on a busy street. We're putting them up.
I took the candy.
Okay,
But-
great.
That's terrific.
That's because Alex has
And
this
the
good stuff
friend.
in his office.
Yeah.
Is that where you went during the break?
That's really great.
Cheering me on. I was like, I don't know.
I just didn't, I mean, so,
I really
that
didn't.
house on Oak was a lot.
Oh, the couple that's there are the most, they are the most fabulous humans.
Oh, that's great.
Everybody's been cool, yeah.
So,
Really fun people.
I don't, I
Oh, are you?
I don't even,
Okay.
I like, so when I go to church with my wife, I'm like,
Who are these people? Yeah.
they're asking, who's your inactive husband?
So if you want to know which firms, how I would rank them
What-
based on
what
my
area
experience
are
as
you
an
in?
applicant,
So
I'll tell you, but I'm not gonna offer it.
I have.
Wait till after,
After everybody's done.
Yeah.
All the way to the lake, so they're not kids.
Those are
Don't leave it so
older
far.
Yeah, 3150, I've got 84.
Rebecca, would you toss me a fish, please?
Yes, I will. There's an actual toss.
So in Boston, that's called the Charles.
Dark red ones or dark?
Dark, I'm a milk.
I'm a dark person.
Are you a dark fan? There's a lot of here. Dark, it's a sea salt caramel.
Well, technically dark's supposed to be
I'm okay with semi-sweet, but it's in a chocolate chip cookie. There better be a lot of it. Oh, you guys did not think far enough. I counted it.
About a year and a half.
Are they all there?
So you guys still feel new, you gotta try to tell yourself you're still new.
Right.
Sure, that's my excuse. Oh, I just didn't know. I'm so sorry, I messed
I
this
used
up.
that excuse for a while. Yeah, where I was like, hey, I Right, okay, are you ready? Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
All right, last one is gonna be Northwest. Yep, no, you're good.
They're muted on entries, so.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi Dennis, hi Tom.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
If you don't mind, we wouldn't mind starting with introductions. We can go around the table here and introduce ourselves, and then you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Okay.
Gina, board member.
Terry McCabe, board member.
Keith Patel, superintendent.
Melanie Hall, board president.
Rebecca Nielsen, board vice president.
I'm Jennifer Partridge, a board member.
And McKay Jensen, a board member.
Nice to meet you. I'll go ahead and start. Are you ready? Should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Jump.
Okay. I'm Dennis Ray, the president of Northwest Leadership, and Tom Rockefeller, who's my colleague here, will be making the presentation. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes or a minute to tell you that we greatly appreciate the opportunity to present our proposal to assist with your upcoming superintendent search. We had the privilege of doing that 10 years ago when Mr. Patel was hired, and it went very well, and enjoyed the time we spent there in the district, and was very impressed with all aspects of the district, really. Tom will give you some statistics about what we've done in the last year or so in the way of number of searches, et cetera, so I won't go into that, but we know we're limited in time, but thank you very much again for letting us come down, and Tom, why don't you go ahead and take it?
Okay. Let me switch over here. Let's see. Can you see that? Can everybody see that?
No.
Nope. Not yet.
Okay. It's on share. Let me get back here. Okay, so now it should be working now.
No.
Not yet, sorry.
We got the share open.
You do better, let's go ahead and do it verbally, Tom, if we're going to get that to show.
I don't know what's going on, but it's hung up right now, at least here. Does everybody has a copy of that?
We have a copy of the
proposal in
proposal,
front of
yeah.
them?
Mhm. Yes, we do.
Okay. I apologize. I don't know what is being hung up here. With it, one of the things that we wanted you to know that as a firm, we've been around for about 22 years. Dennis started this in 1999. We've done nearly 350 searches. This past year, we actually completed over 27 superintendent searches. And we've also done, did several assistant superintendent searches and some building level building level principal searches that were all successful. We feel that we have a real good process that we'll try and go through with you a little bit. Among the people that we have working for us right now, we usually keep about 9 to 12 people, depending on how busy we are and what personal things that they have going on in their life. But we do have about 155 years of combined superintendent experience. And again, we're able to get to that 350 mark this year that we're pretty proud of, and especially the 27 superintendent searches that we did this past academic year. We have assisted districts ranging all the way from about 50 students all the way up to 2,200 or 22,000. We are currently working with a district that is about that same size, but this past year we did 2 or 3 searches that would be comparative to the size of the district that you have right now. The consultants for this particular search would be myself. I usually, as the CEO, I'm involved in the writing of the contracts, and Dennis and I work the office, but I also do about 3 searches. I would be honored to be able to be involved in this search, and especially after talking with Dennis, and he said the success that you had last time when you went through the search process, he was he said this is one that you really ought to look at. So I'm going to be working as the lead, the contact, and then I have 2 close colleagues, Dr. Jean Cementi and Dr. Pam Veltri, and I've worked with these people over the years. I've known them for 25 years, and they're very good at what they do, very well connected with different organizations and different professional learning programs, and we're all in for it if we're selected to help you find that next superintendent. At the end of the proposal that I gave you, there's a sheet on there that has the superintendent's search flow chart. And in that flow chart, there are about 12 steps. And then what I'm going to do is I'll kind of briefly go over those, and then I'll jump into the what we consider the phases that we go through. There are 4 phases. Dennis, if you have anything to add, go ahead. But usually what we do is once we're selected, that's where there's a lot of activity with the board and or the board's designees. And we will aggressively work on getting a search plan and a timeline put together. There are a lot of things that are involved in this, as far as when we'll be doing focus groups, when we would send out information on our online surveys that we do for our searches. And then at the same time, we developed the timeline that most appropriately fits Provo. And the reason is that school districts, you know, I do want to say that we are very flexible with the way that we work the searches, because every school district seems to have a little bit different nuance when they're going through their searches. But we would develop our timeline that would best work with the district, and then we would start our processes from there as far as getting the survey up, start collecting information from the district on building the brochure that is a very important or a key part of what we do in the search. And then we would get into the online and the in-person focus groups. And these are extremely important to be able to, you know, work with the board, work with the staff, the community, and designated groups of people that you are stakeholders that you would have. And we would analyze all the information, and we bring that information, we put it together, and then we bring it back to you. But basically, we ask the same questions of everyone, so that everyone feels that they have a part in developing the brochure and identifying those qualities, professional qualities, and personal attributes that they want to see in the next superintendent. And then a kind of a milestone there is, after all of that is done, then we develop the brochure, and we have about 3,500 individuals and institutions that the brochure goes out to. And then during that time is where we really kick in and start working on our end of it, which is the recruitment, making connections with the different organizations, professional organizations, whether it's the superintendents or administrative organizations, different learning institutions or professional programs. We make connections with those people, and we start searching out people. And I think that we do a really good job of, you know, some people might call it targeting, but we really try to put out a broad sweep to go after people, and try and bring them in, talk to them about putting their applications in. We do have a mid-search review that we bring to the board, and that kind of gives you an idea of the number of people that have contacted us, or that we've contacted to apply. Kind of gives you a rundown of where they're coming from, what type of people that we're looking at that are interested in the job. And sometimes that's one of those places where we really, we find out from other people that you maybe ought to talk to this person, or you ought to contact this person about possibly applying for it. But then after that application deadline, and we usually try and set the mid part of the search for about, I would say, 2 months at least, 8 to 12 or 8 to 10 weeks in there. And I think that your timeline that you kind of outlined or suggested works well, because what it does is it gives time to the candidates, especially during the holidays. If we can get the brochure out in November, it gives them the holidays to work with their families, have time to contemplate, and actually time to start writing the responses to the questions, to address the application itself, because it is quite detailed, and gives them enough time to do that, to get that in and do it appropriately. And then once we get to the application deadline, we turn that in. Really, as soon as the application comes in, we start our research on people, and we suggest that you ask for 4 recommendations and then 4 references. And on the references, that's the tall piece. We call all of the references plus some. And usually what we do is we ask for the references that are given by the candidate to give us another person or two that we could talk that isn't on there. And we'll bring you at the screening report, and, which is the next step. We bring you a pretty detailed screening report, and it has a lot to do with their professional qualifications and their experience, but it also has to do with what we have talked to people that say that, you know, they're not ready, or they're ready but they might need this type of training, or they might need this type of help, so that when we bring those applicants before you, that you have a real good look as to who they are and what potential they may have to you know, fill your position. From there, then we'll spend probably a couple hours with the board going through all of those applications, and we would suggest that you pick around 6 people for the preliminary interviews. And from the preliminary interviews, those are usually I would say an hour long, around in there, that you would get a good idea of who out of that group that you might want to bring back for your final interviews. And those are typically done in executive session, because up until they are picked to go into the interview process, it is confidential for those people that are applying. And we will have candidates that will ask that nothing be said. There might be an tenuous situation in the school district they're in or whatever else, but they'll we'll work through all of that up until the preliminary interviews, and then once they're announced, then everything goes public. You select. We suggest, like I say, we suggest that you select 3 to 4 people to do your final interviews with, and then that last phase there, that's working through all the way up to offering the superintendent contract. But we work with analysis of contracts for similar school districts, the region or whatever else, developing the contract. And we have had a pretty long standing working relationship with developing these contracts with lots of people. And one of the things that we like to do is we have an intent before they go into the final interview. If you have 3 candidates, let's say, we would make sure that they would accept that contract if it was offered. And there are examples of, you know, being offered a contract and somebody coming back and asking for a little more or something different, but we try to have all that buttoned down and together when we go into that final interview. So we, like I say, those steps, then they break down to these 4 phases, and it's you know, preparing for the search, which is all the logistical pieces that we need to do. The recruiting and screening of candidates is the second phase, and that's where we do a lot of work contacting, connecting with people. And the interview phase, you know, we provide all of the or provide suggested timelines, the interview scheduling, questions, and all of, like I say, all this can be modified, but we have all the documentation and schedules and examples for everything from our brochures to our interview questions, any particular document you would need for communications. We also have those that we can use as a framework to work with the community. We do conduct online surveys, We bring that information to you in statistical forms, numeric form, and also all of the comments that are made from people, it'll all be listed out so that you can read those individual comments. And then that can be done in different languages. We usually do it in both Spanish and English anymore. We conduct all the focus group sessions in person. We like to do that. We also have the ability to do that in Spanish also. And these are typically about hour-long meetings. That would put us in focus groups within the district 2 to 3 days, and they're pretty full days of where we start in, whether it's the central office staff, building administrators, teachers associations, and then one of the things we feel that we need to do is interview each one of the board members individually, and we do that to build a more robust look and understanding of what the district is searching for. We take all that information, develop the leadership profile. The leadership profile is what we put on the brochure, and there's personal and professional attributes you want. And then also from that information, we ask the focus groups and from the online surveys or what the challenges are. We will work with the board then to develop the challenges. We put that in the brochure, and we typically ask the candidates to respond to 4 to 6 questions or challenges, how they would address those, and it gives the board something to review or to look at that it gives a better indication of the skills, the knowledge base, and how they might address these challenges that are coming up in their district. All of the different components here, once we, if we're selected, we do meet with the board and we go down through each one to make sure that we have that solidified, and we do ask you to approve both the timeline and the work plan before we move forward, and that then gives us all the particular steps that we need to do to move forward in a, I guess, just a good way that everybody's on the same page. Dennis, you have anything to add right now, or? Your sound's off. Dennis, your sound is off.
The only thing I would add, and I think you said earlier too, is that we come to you with a protocol that we've established over the years that we're pretty comfortable with, but we're also very comfortable with modifying that to fit your school district and what the board wants to see happen. So we recognize completely it's your search and that you have to answer to your community about what's going on in the search process, and we'll certainly work with you in that regard.
And then we also like to guarantee our work, and if there is if we don't find an acceptable candidate the first time around, or if you have a candidate that we've helped place that is dismissed or whatever for cause within the first year, we will come back and do the search again to make sure that you get the right candidate. So I know that was quick. I'm sorry, I don't know why the PowerPoint isn't connecting at all. I've never had the issue before.
Tom, this is Keith. Tom, could you email that PowerPoint to me and I'll get it to the board just so they've got it as a reference?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would appreciate that. Will do. So are there questions that you may have?
I have a question, Ms. Jennifer.
Yeah.
I've noticed that your history you provided of the other districts you've helped is primarily in Washington and some in Oregon, Idaho.
Right.
What can you offer to a district here in Utah? And does going with you mean we automatically get another candidate from Washington again? Not that there's anything
Only
wrong
if
with
you're
that.
lucky.
Are you primarily based in Washington, I guess?
Yeah, most of our work is in the Northwest region. I'm working with the school district in the Midwest by request, and I probably receive 2 or 3 requests a week. We're pretty selective of if we go outside of the region. I'm not concerned. In other words, I think probably the biggest question is what connections do you have that's going to bring the candidates in Utah? And I think that we know the processes that can get us the candidates, and not necessarily from Washington either. That it wouldn't be where we would connect. I would connect with your Superintendent's Association, with the local learning institutions, as well as your school board association. It wouldn't be just in Utah, it'd be in states around, I would say, that would connect in the region. We have found that more and more candidates are less likely to want to leave one region to another. Their people like to live in certain areas of the United States. And so we would search for those people and make the right connections to do that.
But our brochure and our mailing goes to all 50 states. We have every administrative association, every school board association, and it goes to them. They may send it out to a lot of the districts within their state. So it does get good national exposure, but still most of the candidates, as Tom said, do tend to come from the region or not far away.
Yeah, we just completed Central Valley, which is part of Spokane, and it's a district your same size. And of the 6 candidates that we ended up working with, 2 were from the East Coast, 1 was from Bogota, and the other 3 were from Washington. But we usually get people that from all over. So.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation and joining us this afternoon.
I'm sorry. I'll send it to you, Keith. I'm sorry that it didn't work. I don't figure that out. But
These things happen.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dennis.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Richard is here, by the way.
Yeah, I saw him walking.
He's at 4:30 officially, right?
Do you want to take a 2-minute break or a 3-minute break?
You guys want a
before
2 or
we bring
3-minute
in-
break?
Let's just go and then have a break
Have a
after
break
him.
after this.
Yeah.
I don't need any more. I'm good.
There's another Twix. How come none of you guys are taking the Twix? No, good
They're a very different organization.
Hey, Nancy.
I'll turn over.
You brought a live reference?
Yes, I have.
Way to go,
And a
Richard.
good one at that. Would you like us up here? Is this
If you want to be at the front, that would be great.
Okay.
You look great with the mountain background.
Okay. Well, you want to sit right there by the cave then, and I'll sit here on the end. You ready for us to begin?
Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for those who are in the audience. My name is Richard Stowell. I'm the Executive Director for the School Board Association, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and meet with you today. I have brought with me Nancy Tingy, who is president of the Canyons School Board, and actually a past president of the School Board Association. And so I've known Nancy, and we recently did a search in Canyon School District, and recently by way of 2 years ago, which, as you know, would have been right in the height of the pandemic. And so it was a challenge to go through a superintendent search. But in the end, I would say it was probably one of the most successful searches that we have conducted. By way of the process, I think by way of, well, just the entire thing, I think turned out to be very effective, and that's the reason I brought Nancy with me today, is to have her share with you what we did, and kind of how we did it, and then I think you'll be able to see that led to a really successful outcome. And I would say, and I would, I guess, just share with you and just be right open and frank, and that is that in the past couple of years, we have done a lot of searches, and I brought some sample brochures that I'm going to show you, or announcements of the position, that we have done the search in Jordan School District, in Canyons, in Alpine School District, in Granite School District, Weber School District, and so nearly all of the large school districts. And I'm not taking any credit for it, but I would say because of the process we went through, we just have some real stellar superintendents in those school districts across our state right now. I think that they are some of the most effective superintendents that we have had come in to the process and have been selected and appointed. They are extremely effective superintendents in all of those districts, and I think most of you, have rubbed shoulders with them at some point in time, and know of the quality and caliber of those people. And so it's really interesting to look back on that and go, wow, there's just been some really great people. And I would add, some of those people have been appointed inside of the district. Gina Butters in Weber School District just recently was appointed, so somebody inside of the school district. And then we have had people like in Granite School District, where somebody come from outside of the district. And the same in Canyons, it was somebody outside of the district. Alpine is somebody inside of the district. And so it's been people both inside and outside of the district that I think has been just a really great, I'm going to say it this way, a class of superintendents in the last 2 years. So anyhow, all of that leads up to why I've asked Nancy to come and share with you, and we're just going to be really informal. So we hope if you've got some questions, you'll just ask us. And then I've got a little agenda here that when Nancy's through, that we'll go through if we have some time. Some important points I think that we'll want to make. So, but with that, Nancy, we'll just turn the time over to you, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you all. It's good to see you all, and a pleasure to be here. So as Richard was talking about kind of what makes a successful superintendent search, what comes to my mind is the key to success is having the board, who the board is elected to represent the vision of the community, having the board really be driving and leading out on the process. And that's something that was very important to our board as well. And so when our, at the time, superintendent announced his retirement, then, we sat down as a board, we determined, okay, do we want to launch a search? It was January. Do we want to launch a search now, or look at appointing an interim and taking more time? So, we discussed and determined that we felt like, no, we could go ahead and launch launch the search. And so we did that, and early on the suggestion was, let's contact Richard and see what USBA and Richard can help us with. So we had a meeting similar to this with him, and the board felt really comfortable going that route. But one of the things that Richard, besides his extensive experience over the years, is he's really good at supporting a board and supporting the priorities and the values and the way a board wants to do it. He recognizes it's different. Every situation is different. Even if it's the exact same, district, but a few years later it's a different situation. And that really the board they're the folks that are probably as in tune with the larger community as anyone. So that was what we did, and we another piece to making it successful is our board didn't just rely on our intuition or our good sense about what we thought the community wanted. We did reach out, and we had community input meetings. We had surveys of different stakeholder groups, employees, parents, community leaders, because we recognize that all of us, we represent the whole community, not just one or two of those stakeholder groups. And so we conducted that piece to help inform the board as we were evaluating and reviewing the different applicants. One of the things that was a little bit tricky, like Richard said, was it was kind of the height of COVID. So January 2020 is when we started this process, and we kind of put enough together that we put out the job description, the job announcements, and opened up the application window the middle of February 2020, and the middle of March 2020, literally the day the government closed schools down, was when our application window closed. So from the time we started the search to then when we got to the parts about reviewing applicants and conducting interviews and things like that, it was the second half of March 2020. So we were facing some unknown challenges in the form of logistics, but Richard was really great. We worked through that, and I'll say just another thing that I found helpful in keeping the board at the lead, driving this process. Richard was so great to facilitate some of the legwork, some of the little things that allowed us as a board to stay focused on our role. And like, for example, all of the applications were submitted to Richard at the USBA office. And he and his team then verified the applications, if they were complete, if they met the requirements that the board had issued. And just that help alone was so great, because then we as a board, we were all working together. No one of us had any access to information that another didn't have access to in that regards. And then even like setting up appointments for interviews and things like that, Richard was just really great with doing that. So it really did allow us as a board to do our job, and he was very supportive that way. And all along, I also believe our larger community, they felt like they were a part of it, and they felt like they could trust the board because we were the ones that were in charge. So that was it. And we're really grateful. It did work out really well, and I learned how to conduct a Zoom meeting. I'd never heard of Zoom before that, right? So whatever experiences you find yourself in, you're going to have it be a learning experience. I can guarantee you that.
And even in the midst of all of the pandemic, we still ended up with a great pool of candidates, you know, because she described, you know, it closed just at the time that COVID kind of shut things down. And so we had a pool of candidates, and we had a lot of candidates in state. We had candidates within the district, and we had candidates from a number of other states, candidates that applied. And a lot of that was the messaging that the board used in communicating the qualifications that they were looking for in a superintendent. And I have emailed to the board here what that announcement looked like. So if you haven't had a chance, you can see that. I sent that to you. And I would say, you know, that was a pretty good sample of what I think that you would want to do. You know, whoever it is that you want to help you with the search, something like what was done there in Canyons was impressive. And people would see that and they would realize, wow, this school district, you know, they are organized, they know what they're wanting to accomplish, they know who they're looking for in a superintendent, and they did clear through that whole process. And I would say that people knew as candidates that this Board of Education was so professional in how we dealt with everybody and how people were treated. And then Nancy added it was not only, you know, how they felt, but it was how the rest of the board felt. And they knew that these people had been treated fairly in the whole process. We just followed it, and that is thanks to Nancy. She is not taking any credit here. But that the whole process really goes back to her as board president at the time, and how all of that was communicated. She made sure that every board member knew, you know, everything that was going on. She was communicating with all of the board, and that's why that worked so well. I didn't communicate with the rest of the board through that process. Nancy would call me or text me or email me weekends, nights, sometimes Sunday, and I would.
People just have your phone numbers.
I know. I know. I should have turned it off or changed my number or something. And so then she would ask me a question, you know, and I'd relay it back, and then maybe if the board had a question, she'd get back to me. There's just a great communication there to ensure that all of the board was totally aware of what was going on, and then making sure that all of their questions were answered. And I think that we only got together as a whole group at the beginning, and then when we got the applications in, right? And Nancy didn't even want to see the applications. I don't want to know who has applied until it's closed and we have a meeting of the board. So we had a meeting, and I actually then shared with everybody who the candidates were. So it's just all of those kind of things that were so professional, and that was, you know, Nancy's doing. Now I would say, you know, right along with the professional way that it was handled in Canyons, I would say that it was, and I'll say that it was very close. Second is how it was handled in Jordan School District. And Tracy Miller, who was vice president of the board, played the role that Nancy did in Canyons. And so to Nancy's point just a minute ago, and that is each one of these searches are unique. And we want to make sure that they're customized to fit what you guys want. And making sure it fits in Provo School District. And, you know, and she said even if it was the same district, but, you know, a few years apart from that, which would be your case, that it would be very different from what it was 10 years ago. So anyhow, that's a little bit of it. I hope it's given you kind of a feel for what we have done in these school districts. I'll just share with you, this is some of the announcements. I actually pulled the one out from your school district here 10 years ago and brought the brochure with me of what that looked like. And boy, I tell you, you know, that was really sharp. That's a good looking announcement. You know, we call them a brochure, but these would be, this is just a print copy of what we would post electronically. And that's why I sent you the one of Canyon, so you can see the digital version of that one there. So anyhow, I'm just gonna, maybe before I pass that around, because as soon as I pass those around, you won't listen to me anymore. And so I'm gonna, and there's copies, I've got about 20 copies of it there. Let me just pass those around that way. This is just a short kind of an agenda. Nancy, there's and I'm just gonna mention a couple of things, and then we'll let you take a look at the brochures, and then Melanie will open it up for any questions or anything that you guys have for us. But you know, the first item on there, you know, but this will probably be the most important decision that this board will make. And I'm going to change the word probably to it will be the most important decision that this board will make. And then number two, the superintendent tenure in Utah is about double the national average. You know, Randy Merrill was here for 10 years, and now Keith Rattel's been here for 10 years. You know, and that's probably. I hope to
make it to 11.
Yeah, it was 2020. No, let's see, when was it?
2012.
2012. That's right. Yep. So it would be just a little over 10 years. And so that's about almost, you know, triple the national average right now of superintendents. And so, you know, and that's what we have in Utah. So we are at least double or more than the national average, which we look at as being a very positive thing, because there's some research that was done out of the McCrell Research Laboratory, which said there is a direct correlation between the tenure of a superintendent and the board and student achievement. That there was a measurable difference when the superintendent stays in a position longer, and board members do, then that leads to this increase in student achievement. And so, you know, obviously, you don't want to go through this process too often, and the longer they stay, the better. So, and then I just throw in there, and we know the secret to that. And I'll just share with you, the secret really is you as a board and your involvement, like what Nancy has described. That's really the secret of finding the right superintendent, finding that right match for your school district. So, and there's a lot of work involved, and you know, she can go on, and she said, you know, if you want to get into real detail, she can give you lots of details here. But there's some work that it takes for you to go through that process. So down to number 4, the superintendent's search process is a service of USBA, and we're here to help and assist. And there is no cost to the school district other than that of the distribution of the announcement. And you know, there may be other things you'd like us to do, but as far as what we do, there's no cost to you as a school district. So, and then down to number 5 is the review of the brochures, and number 6 is what I mentioned, the success in our large school district of finding the right fit in the last few years is pretty evident as you look at those superintendents. And then we can go from there with some questions or whatever you have. So I'm just going to start 3 of them around this way if I could, and we'll go 3 that way, and you can see that those brochures there, it's just a sampling, and again, we call them a brochure, they're really the announcement, and then we just take and put, obviously, you know, they're in a digital format. They're all a little bit different, and that's why, you know, we go back to each search that we do, we find is unique to that school district, and some of them send a message that, you know, this is what we're looking for, this is the kind of superintendent we want, and some of them become, you know, identify some of those traits pretty succinctly, and some of the others are more generic. So And I would say, you know, probably half of those brochures are ones that, probably more than half, are ones that have been designed by the school district. And then the others are ones that we have designed. And so, in a school district your size, I'm sure that you have, you know, plenty of people that are very, very capable of being able to design the brochure. So, just like you did before when we did the search. So, I think that that would be, you know, something, and in a district your size, that there are people who would deem that as a privilege to be able to design that brochure. Whether it would be somebody in your school or somebody in the district office. Most people look at that and they take that as quite an honor if they've been asked to design that brochure and announcement, so that because it would go as far and wide as you guys would like it to. So, okay, I have talked enough. What questions do you guys have? What can we explain to you more about what we do? Jennifer, you raised your hand first there.
Yeah, I think I'd like to better understand. Obviously, as board, we're going to be involved in the process in, you know, connecting with our community and determining what we're looking for in a superintendent and all of that. But how much of, once we kind of get an idea of that, does USBA then do the actual work to compile the list and to create the wording of the brochures versus what will we need to have the time and capacity of board members or the one person on our board that's the liaison? Like, how much of a time commitment is that?
Nancy, do you want to field that question?
Well, in our situation, we turned much of that over to our communications department to put it together. And you worked with them a little bit on that part. But I think we had been through the process 6 years earlier, and we kind of, the communications department, you know, relied on some of that information that had been already put together.
Yeah, and I would say, Jennifer, that, you know, we would be involved as much or as little as you would like in that part of the process. So like in Canyon's situation, you know, they knew what they wanted, and the board there does know what they want in that district. And so that was communicated to their people, and then they would run drafts of it back and forth with me as far as some of the, you know, my input to it, and then back to Nancy, you know, before anything was, you know, made final. So
well, and the board.
And the board
took a look at it before it was mailed out, and we did what we called a national search, meaning we published the announcement and information about applying in national publications, and both print and online, which I don't know if there's much print anymore, but there was still a little bit a few years ago. And then Richard also sent out information to his colleagues and contacts through nationwide as well through the state associations. And so I thought that worked out really well. We had really good broad exposure to what we were, you know, looking for, and we did, like he mentioned, we got quite a bit of interest.
Yeah, across the country.
So Canyons is one circumstance, but you have the capacity. I mean, we're smaller. Our group is you know, often stretched thin, trying to keep up with our big neighbors. You have some capacity to assist in some of those things. Should we need that? Is that correct?
Yeah, and I know somebody that is really good at designing those kind of things. Okay.
It's all your free time.
Well, but I think, I mean,
Yeah.
we've gone through, you know, some of the national search firms, and they say, oh, you know, arranging travel, setting up appointments, you know, those things. Those are things that are not, if we needed some things like that, that USBA and their.
Yeah, and so we're happy to help and again, do as much or as little as you would like, and so, you know, we're more than happy to design the brochure. And we actually, you know some people here in Provo area, actually, that we use that helps us a lot with some of our
branding and
communication, and so, you know, we may even ask them. We may go to them and say, hey, we want some help from you guys to help us maybe do a little design work with that. But that would be something we would do. So we're happy to do that and assist. And like I say, some of these brochures are ones that we have done. You know, the one in Alpine School District, I think I brought Alpines with me. You know, I think that David Stevenson over there in Alpine had a lot to do with that. And so they pretty much took all of that and put that together, you know, with the board, and they worked so closely with the board that they put that together. But
and I will just add, all of the communication between the applicants and the board was, I mean, Richard did all of the arrangements for scheduling appointments, things like that. So when the first time any of us on the board met with an applicant or even spoke with an applicant was during the interview process. So Richard really helped out a lot with that. I mean, that when we say facilitate, I mean, it was everything from scheduling appointments. You know, unfortunately, because of COVID, we didn't have really any travel arrangements to be made. But we did some interviewing through Zoom and some in person.
We did some
but
of
you
those
arranged
Zoom,
all of that, all of the detail on that and the scheduling. And, you know, one of the first things that we did as the board is we all sat down with our calendars and we said, okay, we are going to need to have some extra meetings here. And so we all identified dates where it was possible. We didn't schedule it at the time, but where it was possible. So we had a menu of dates that we could then give to Richard for setting up interviews and things. So.
Yes, please.
Do you have a feel for, like, I like that the superintendent tenure in Utah is about double the national average. Do Utah districts tend to hire someone from within Utah?
You know, most of the school districts do, for a number of reasons. One of those, the primary reason, is that they're familiar with the school finance formula in Utah and school law and school culture that we have and community culture.
Right.
And so, and then unfortunately, the other part of that is that our salaries in Utah are not nearly at the level they are outside of Utah. So we tend to end up with people, you know, most of them are, you know, people who are native to Utah. We have, you know, a few superintendents who are not. Right now there are at least, just quickly comes to mind, at least 3 superintendents who are from outside of Utah that are here. You know, they're close by. They're, you know, one of them's from Wyoming and 2 from Idaho. And so, you know, most of them are, you know, at least from surrounding states that we have. And one of the primary reasons for driving that again is the salaries.
Yeah, I would guess that's part of the secret too. Is if they know what they're getting into, they're more likely to stay.
Then they're likely to stay here.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I have one after you.
Richard, your read on applicants doing an interview by way of Zoom as opposed to in person, what kind of insight can you give us on that?
Well, you know, we actually in Canyons, I think all of the in-state candidates, you know, they came in person. You know, we found if they're serious about this job, then they're going to come in person. And so we did all of the in-state people, and again because of the pandemic, and actually one of them that was going to interview would have come in person if they could have got a flight. I think there was problems with just being able to get a flight at that time. But they would have come in person, and so I certainly encourage them to come in person. I think that's an important part of it, so that they can see the school district if they're not familiar with it. They can see the school district. They can have an opportunity to see the area, and I think that's all a part of it, of them being the right fit. And we need somebody that's the right fit, and that they're a rock star. You hear me say that a lot of times. We're looking for a rock star here, so that they are the right fit for you and to do what you want to get done in this district.
So I just have a clarification about the stakeholder surveys. Is that something that the district puts on, or is that something that you help us with as well?
We chose to do it in-house in our district, but Richard said he could do it if we wanted him to.
Yeah.
Or even conduct in-person meetings.
Yeah.
Like town hall type meetings.
I'll share with you just an idea that we did in a school district a few years ago that I thought was really effective. So if you say, okay, so what has worked really well in all of these searches? And obviously we've done a few of them. And so, what was really effective? And I don't share this by saying this is what you guys need to do, but it's just a thought. And then you guys can go, you know what, that would work great for us, and maybe we'll tweak it a little bit. That it's a very large school district, and the thing that we did is we put together a series of town hall meetings. And that district there was scattered out. And so the thing we did is I believe we held about 5 of them. But the thing that was really great, and you guys are in that situation, first thing we did in that meeting, and we had the board president conduct those meetings, and the board president, said, hey, here's a little bit of history of our district. Superintendent Rattel is retiring after, how many ever years now that is, and when that comes about. But anyhow, so he is retiring, and then as soon as that was through, their communications department there, and again it was, and I think they have a person in the district like you do, but then they got some assistance from one of their schools, put together a short video and showed to everyone the things that are going on in the district, the buildings that have been built, the success of their students. It was just such a great opportunity to share with their community the great things that are happening in Provo School District, and we cited that in this video. And then when we were all through with the video, then we asked people if they have some suggestions or ideas of what qualifications they would like to see in the new superintendent, that they could go online and submit them, or we had a box there that night and people could just write it down, an idea or thought, suggestion, put it in a box and leave. I can tell you, we had legislators attend that. It was very, very successful. Now I've had another district that has tried to do that same kind of thing, and it wasn't nearly as successful. Because I think they did it because I brought the idea up, rather than it being something they wanted to do. And so it needs to be something that you guys do. And that comes back to Nancy. As the board, that you know what you want to do. And then that's what we're going to do. We are clearly not going to drive this process. We're only here to help and assist you in accomplishing what you want to get done. And that's what we've done in all of these. And that, again, is part of the secret of success. It's you doing it. But anyhow, that's just a thought. So when you bring that up, Melanie, that one comes to mind and go, wow, it was really successful, that round that we did that.
Anybody else have questions for Richard or Nancy?
Very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we will be in touch. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us today.
Yeah.
So,
Best wishes to all of you.
Thank you.
Exciting and busy time.
So
Good to see you, Nancy.
I'm gonna make a suggestion that we take a 10-minute break, so we'll meet back here at 5:10.
Thanks again to all of you. Nice to see you. I'll just leave these here. These are for you to look at if you would like.
Thank you. We'll just leave those in Keith's office so people can
Some
look at
additional
them.
ones, so.
So, dinner's here too if you want to grab that while you're taking a quick break.
See you later.
Yeah. This is my measurement of how far away I am from Sunday.
Thank you.
Your gauge.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
You bet. Yeah. Happy to go.
Okay.
Yes.
I know we're gonna talk about this later, but I'm inclined to just go Richard. Things that I worry about, and then told it to look on Rebecca, communications department,
I think it's Richard is really sensitive, so when he talks about candidates, I mean, they have 6 people that just do communications.
Yeah.
It's a full staff, they're ready to go. If an outside firm is going to be like, okay, we're just going to critique it. So what do you want to do? If when he says, oh, we can do it, when he talks about the firm that they have a contract with, that's Eli Kirk, they're on Center Street, does their website, and all the things, how they have a contract with somebody says, oh, we'll do survey training.
Who's this? The USDA?
Richard,
Okay.
yeah. So they can do all those things. They just don't want to step on toes.
Okay.
Because their experience is that when a
like-
search firm comes in and goes, no, this is really who you want, and they start, this is really, this is how this, then that's when he sees it go, he goes, if this is what you want, this is what you do, and they're prepared to help do anything.
I see, I'm not super confident in our
Right.
ability to hold meetings. I mean, we can do it, but it'd be great.
Yeah.
The Dixon ones were.
Right. And I think
I was on the list.
I think it's what you're trying to accomplish too. And I think we can talk about that. But I think it's so versus one of the groups says, oh, we'll just hold all the meetings and we'll bring you the results versus I think a little bit of what Richard has an instinct. He wants to build confidence in what happens after. And the search firm goes away, and it's still, I mean, it's, people know the board said having the board involved, and it doesn't have to be just Rebecca. It can be.
I just think in order for whoever we get to be successful in Provo particularly, they're going to have to be, I don't care if they're members of the church, it makes zero to me, but
Right.
they have to be very well versed in the Mormon LDS culture here.
Yeah.
And the way that you do that is you live here. Like, you live here, or you have ties here, or you've been here, like, and so it's like, you want to pay someone a lot of money to give us someone that would have come anyway, or, but I worry about the toll it will take on Melanie, Rebecca, and our employees here.
I mean, I think he's really proud of what's happening in Kansas because they're so particular.
Did they hire from someone from Ogden?
No, they hired from 2S.
Oh, okay.
Rick Robbins. Granite stole the guy from Ogden who worked at the state office.
Okay.
But he was really, because this particular board is, I mean, they're really particular, very, very well opinionated.
Do they have wealth? Are they the canyons? Is that the wealthy?
Yes.
No. Is that where Corner Canyon is?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
and Jordan High School, not Jordan, Jordan High School, Brighton, Highland. They were, so in contrast to Orem going, oh, we should provide, and we were like, that's like Jordan, that's going to cost us money. And we don't want to buy it. But these went, we're not going to have to raise taxes for 15 years, which they didn't. their tax base was huge. I mean, so like Lehigh was, I mean, I have people call me from Orem all the time. Hey, is this a good idea for Orem? And I would go, probably not. If someone in Lehigh called me and said, is this a good idea for Lehigh? I would probably go, I don't want to say, because it actually is.
Right. The tax base is.
Yeah.
We're not in that situation.
No, we're not in that. But he's proud of that, but he could have brought in Pike. Pike does not have Garfield. They do not have the ability to do. But he did a good search. And so I thought it was interesting that one firm said, oh, we need Cody Wyoming. And I said, oh, I know where that Cody Wyoming superintendent went.
He didn't stay very long?
He just went to, I mean, he's across, and he went to Burbank.
Oh, so
Richard snagged.
That's why they added.
Well, I just think. I think Richard is in the best spot to know what we might need. Not that he needs to push it on us, but.
And that's what he's sensitive to. That everything everybody does is. I want you to know that actually this is you, and I think his people are suspicious.
Oh, because it's local.
I call him my. Well, it's nothing except for there are some additional costs. If there's a cost of posting, there's a cost.
No, I know. I knew that. I was just wanting to ask.
Yeah. So,
He's got the most skin in the game. I really like Alpine. Alpine is my favorite one. The ones with big pictures they're pretty, but my personal preference is when I'm looking for something, give me the information. I don't care about the pictures. I mean, it's like you have to have pictures to break it up, but I don't think they need to.
And if you saw their stakeholder report, I mean, they send out everyone, once a year. This is what their stakeholder report.
Yeah, I like the way Alpine. I like that one for Alpine. And they ended up hiring from internally, right?
Yeah, and so what's interesting, they did. And what's interesting about there, so Canyon, they're full of former TV reporters and newspaper reporters. This is a former defense.
That put it together, or that they hired?
That is their communications staff. I mean, and they go through them. It's not like they don't expect. This is how this should work. You're going to learn your job.
But he kind of got it, because he's been on the ground.
And, same with Kimber. They used to do some of this.
I thought the Kenyan communication person. Oh, you're talking about Alpine?
Yeah.
Alpine. Okay.
They're
Kenyan did the guy did the presentation. I thought he was a Tribune reporter.
Hey Todd, thank you for your information on the school times. I didn't. I was giving my emails. I didn't respond. I'm getting more sleep, but my brain is.
Was it helpful?
I'm not really. Yes, super helpful for me to be able to use those as I talk. I've had numerous people contact me about that, and I need Derek too. So.
I mean, it stops short because there becomes a commitment, and there's a price tag to that. It's whether or not we want, as a board, we want to spend that kind of money. And I've been in 2 other districts that have looked at this, made a change, and we pulled back for very similar reasons.
And the ones that made the change, it's working out okay?
The one that made the change, first it cost a lot up front, and so they were willing to do that. But they had the funds to do that. In terms, I was in high school In terms of a dramatic change, it's like a 2:30 start in high school. And a 3:30, say 9 or 9:30 start and a 3:30 finish.
And it's full time.
Well, I mean, they made it work, but in terms of outcomes, expected outcomes,
Not.
All right, welcome back.
there's a give and take on either side.
We're gonna next have Derek Anderson do a construction update for us.
All right, Bonnie's gonna pull up. All right, okay, so what you got right here is kind of the update with where construction is at. The next slide, I'm gonna go through Temp U first. So right now, Temp U, they're starting the 3rd floor of the academic wing. And so that's what this part right up here is that you can see sticking up. So they're now moving up into the 3rd floor phase of the new academic wing. If you go to the next slide, please, Bonnie. So you can see here, these are the retaining walls that have been built up on that northwest corner. They're looking really good.
Where's the seminary building in?
So the seminary building is actually like right just here on this corner right here.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's
It's
it right
right
there. Right there, yeah.
Okay, just couldn't see it.
Yeah, so it's a really neat area down there. When it's finished, you'll almost be able to use this bottom area as an outdoor learning center. Almost is what it looks like it's going to happen. This is from the 2nd floor looking out to that northwest corner up over. This right here is the south face of that academic wing also. This going in. So one of the things I want to point out right here, okay, is this white square is one of the new air handlers at Temp U, okay? So we actually have to, when we build these things, the schools, the air handlers, the boilers, all that stuff goes in first, and then you build the building around it. Okay, so it's not like something that you can really easily now come in later and tear that out and replace it. They become pretty permanent fixed structures. Okay, you go to the next slide, please. So this is, so 2 weeks ago we had that power cut, right? Here's what happened. So you see this trench right here? This is that I-wing, and what happened is there was a power line that came out of the I-wing across over here and connected to a transformer. It was one of the original power lines from the construction. The building standards have changed from when Temp U was originally built to now. There was no fabric down. There was no change in grade material, right? So normally there's a warning to tell you there's a power line or there's a plumbing line or there's something. There was absolutely nothing here when that happened, and not only was there nothing there, they had a spotter that was watching the gentleman digging, and even the spotter could not see it happen until it was severed. So there was a lot, I mean, they were taking the proper precautions. It was one of those things that was unavoidable due to the construction. So that's where that was.
Everybody's safe, by the way, right?
What was that?
Everybody was safe.
Everybody was safe. Everybody was safe. We were very lucky on that one. That one could have been, that was a lot of power. What you see here is some more footings for the walls. This right here is going to be the walkway from the old area of the school through over to the new academic wing. And so that's what all of this area is right here that's being built out.
The commons?
Yes, thank you. Again, this is just the same area over here where this was being dug out. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the reason I wanted to point this part out is, you see this right here, this is that's the 3 air handlers that were built into that room. There's 3 of them in that one room. So now we'll look over here. What do you see? Lots of silver, right? Lots of silver. Now this right here, when people say, this is ridiculous that schools cost this much, right? I've never seen a residential house built with that, right? And that's because the building code changes when you go from residential up into what we're dealing with, right? Our schools are designed that if a fire were to break out, because this is a classroom wing where classrooms are and stuff, if a fire were to break out here, what's burning? Right? They're just designed to be really safe facilities, so that way it mitigates and minimizes the amount of loss. So that's what you see here is there's a lot of metal that's being built, and that's partly why costs of schools or cost so much. All right, we go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is there's a couple things I want to point out here. This is the reason hey, that looks actually cool, but anyway. Sorry, squirrel moment, that was a squirrel. What you also hear though is all that metal, right? You see all that metal here, all these beams, right? I mean, those are massive, thick beams of steel that are to support the structure, okay? So here's what you see right here is a really weird thing. And this is kind of one of the things that happened over the summer at Tentview. They were pouring this second floor, okay? So the way they construct is they go from the ground up, all right? And then when they get to the second floor, they're starting to do this kind of stuff, right? It's all open to the sky and whatnot. But downstairs, they're already starting to finish stuff, right? Like you start to, so they phase it all the way through, okay? And they're coming at each other. But what happened here is they put these pylons in underneath the flooring, right? Underneath the flooring to support all that steel as they go to pour. They were pouring this, and all those supports started to snap. And so everyone ran to get the heck out of there because this is the second floor up. And so they all got out of there to try to figure out what heck happened, to assess things, what was going on. And in the meantime, the concrete that was poured dried in that state, right? And so now we're having to go back and cut and chip this out to continue to move forward. It will not come on us. We're not going to eat this cost. This is going to be on Westland. But that is one of the things that we've had happen within the last, month and a half.
What kind of a setback is that?
Well, that happened about a month and a half ago, and they're still cutting and chiseling it out. So it was in July, I think, into July when it happened.
Like, are these kinds of things common, or are we the lucky ones?
That one is not as common. That's an outlier. So that's a very, I put it, I mean, it's a very unfortunate thing to have had happen. And so they're having to cut it out, and this is what we're being told, Westland is going to cover it, and it will not cause delays, and they're going to bring their crew in and get it all cleaned out. So,
do we know what happened?
Yes, so here's what happened, okay? When they went to support, and they put all those pylons in to support the floor, they over-tightened them, right? So what happened is you put it up on there to support it, they pour the concrete, it supports it, and then you take off those supports. What happened is they over-tightened them, so as they poured the concrete, all the weight landed on those supports instead of sharing the load. And so
on the structure itself where the engineering was happening. These were supposed to be supports, but it ended up being
the structure.
The structure.
Bingo. And so as they poured it, all of the weight was on the supports and not the structure. And so the supports started snapping. And they're hearing the supports snapping, and they ran. And because they're thinking things are coming down, this floor is going to collapse, right? And so that's what ended up happening. This right here is the thank you, the locker room down at near the Thunderdome. So the Thunderdome and the locker rooms near the Thunderdome are almost complete. I mean, if you were to go there now, if you go to the slide, next slide, please. You can see here they're already prepping carpet, lighting, and everything. They're saying that they believe these rooms will be open for use here. What was we did a walkthrough there the other day. What did they say it was?
We went in August. The walkthrough I requested, yeah, that was in August. September?
So
No, fall break.
Fall break, bingo, that was the one, thank you.
The teachers will be moving their classrooms over fall break.
So this will all be open, and they'll be moving in during fall break. So that's kind of the plan as of right now. So will you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so shoreline, where we're at on shoreline, there's not a ton to update on shoreline. Shoreline, the wetland issue is still with the Army Corps of Engineers. We filed the permit. Every indication we're having right now is that it's still on the path that we'll get their permit and we'll just be able to move forward. But that we're still waiting on that. Footings and foundations have been dug and been started to be poured. And then the plumbing for the locker rooms, because they've got to put all the plumbing in that goes underneath the foundation before they pour the foundation. So a lot of the plumbing that's going under the foundation has been prepped and is in also. So the storm drain system, there is a storm drain line, and I didn't put the map on here. So there's a storm drain line that the city has coming from the north of our property. And then there's some detention basins to the south of our property. The city came to us and said, can we work together to come up with something, because we need this access to get over here to this storm drain pond over here. And if we don't access it through your property, they weren't going to have enough slope to make it there. So we worked with the city to upgrade our system to a 48-inch line, where the city is going to tie into it on the north end, and it will run through our property and into their storm drain system. They will own the line and maintaining the line, and they're going to allow us to eliminate one of the detention basins that we had planned for our property that would have taken up a chunk of the playfield. And so that now is going to be eliminated also. So that way we'll have more of a playing field, and then they'll get their system to be able to tie into the area to the north. So that there's an agreement that Derek Marshall's working on with the city to get that nailed down, so they will cover the additional costs. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah.
I got a complaint from a neighbor.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that the construction big giant trucks are coming in from Lakeview Parkway and not on 600 South. Because there were apparently some big giant construction, and there's a brand new curb that was put in on 1100 West and 600 South.
Okay. I have a meeting tomorrow with Shoreline. What I'll do is I'll ask them what's going on with where the trucks are coming in and talk to them about
Yeah.
Wasatch. This is Wasatch. Where things are at is Wasatch is the city has removed as much dirt as they can. Okay. At this point, because now they've had to pull off because of other jobs. That leaves about this section right here that actually got hit with their dirt. We still have all of this that will need to still have dirt moved. There's a lot of dirt that needs to be moved here on this property. But they've got about 800,000 of it, and it came out of about right here. And so they've now pulled off, but they've substantially completed their piece of value. There's, like I said, there's still a significant amount of dirt work. One of the things that actually we may get lucky on is this delay because of this water line and because of the wetlands issue. We actually might get lucky on this, because in our current bids for Wasatch and Shoreline, we are paying for 100% of the dirt work here and the dirt work there. Wasatch needs dirt removed, Shoreline needs dirt added. So if these timelines end up aligning, we may save a good amount of money and it will come out in our favor. But it's right now it's like this, because we're close to that time window. So
the reason why we can't make sure that it aligns, since these are both our projects.
So if we tell them, do not make this work and you just wait until you can do this, what it can cause is delays in terms of when we open, if there's an issue when we're planning on opening, or the timing of the supplies and when we've ordered them. We can store them potentially, but I mean, I can explore that option to say, we're willing to accept the delays to make this work if it can work. I can start to explore that option. I just haven't had the time to even potentially explore that.
We can't lose money on the other side.
Bingo.
This is a good idea.
And that's it kind of it's a balancing game of just like Mr. K said, yeah.
So we made a deal with the city for $1 million. Where's the other 200?
So we have 10 years to use that up.
Okay.
So we've worked with the homeowner to the south here to abandon this line, okay? So what you see here is this line that goes through, that's the line that we're talking about saying we want eliminated. Currently right now, it ends like right here, even though they're showing it here, it ends into a retention basin. But right now we have two paths forward where they've agreed to essentially say, yeah, we're willing to get rid of it. So it looks like we're about ready to have this wrapped up. Your bid packet 2 for the full building build is expected to be here in November, with all the design being finished and essentially say, all right, now here's the building to bid and approve and start moving forward with construction. What questions we got?
The bid packet 2 will be for a building of what size?
83,000 square feet. And so the difference on that between what we traditionally have done and this one is 2 full-day kindergarten classrooms and 2 classrooms for the bubble-sized classes of DLI, because we have 2 classes that are still in the 3 grade model. That at least the last time I'd heard. So.
But those are flex classes going forward.
Bingo. And they can be flex moving forward as those move out. Correct. And that would be between those 4 structures. That's about 5,000 square feet. So, I mean, that would put us down around 79.
Derek, sorry, on the very first slide.
Oh.
With all the terrace and the seminary building.
Yes.
Can you remind me, I think I asked before, right there, are there going to be pathways through that terracing for kids to walk through? They're going to have to go around? Is it being landscaped as such so that they're not going to be able to go through it and ruin everything we put in?
That is correct. So they are not going to be hanging out up here in these upper levels by any means. There's not going to be any pathways up there. It's essentially going to be xeriscaped. So that way it's more of a, hey, you don't want to go in there because there's cobblestone and you're going to break your ankle kind of deal.
How do they get to seminary?
So from here, there's the road that goes down the sidewalk, but over here on this side, this all is open here. And there's a to the north, or sorry, east. This is open, and there will be a driveway in here to get in and deliver goods, get to the Tempe football field. So that old driveway will still be there, where there's a pathway that people can walk from this southern side of this facility up into there. And actually there's the other thing up is, well, right here where I'm at, and on the north face of this facility, there is an exit that goes east that they'll be able to walk out of and go straight to it. So
It actually will be closer for them.
yeah, actually now when this is finished and they're in there, this will be closer than the new building. But during the construction, the way to get there is going to end up being out and around, unfortunately, just because of construction.
All right, any other questions on construction? All right, thank you, Derek.
Yep.
All right, next, student travel requiring board approval. We are going to ask our Provo High School choir and dance tour, so Jocelyn. She wants to go first.
Just dance or just both of us?
I guess both of you, if it's for both of you.
Come on now.
And
Hurry up.
Jocelyn.
Let's do this. So we decided to do it together because my company this year is quite small. The travel in a small group is way more dicey than it is to join in with a bigger group. Huzzah!
And we'll have extra room on our buses because we won't fill 2 buses entirely. So that's the way we're going to be cutting costs on this trip.
We'll be traveling down together, but once we get down to California, we'll separate into our 2 different activities to help support the dancers find career opportunities and experiences in California.
Yeah, so that quote right there is from Infinity Travel, and that is, they're one of the contracted travel agencies that we can work with. They specialize in performing arts trips. And so the amount on the application says $12.50, and that's just because to do the festival and the day at Disney and all the travel, things have gotten so expensive lately. But since then, Jocelyn and I have talked about how we can bring that cost down for the students, and we've also done, we've put together like 3 different options for the students to choose from at different price points so that we can gauge what their interest level is and what they are wanting to pay. And so it looks like we're probably only going to be charging $800 a student now for this trip, with an additional $200 per student being covered by group fundraising and things that we're going to be doing. So.
And I'm going to ask this to everybody. It doesn't have to be detailed, just in general. Is there something that you have in place for students who may want to attend but don't? I was appreciative to hear that the money came down. But for the students who may have difficulty paying to do something, like, I just want to make sure that it's not cost prohibitive for some of these students who may want to participate but whose families don't have the means.
Of course. We've got a couple individual fundraisers that the students can participate in to raise money towards their individual fee. They've been pretty successful in the past. We'll do those again. And then we also are planning some of our group fundraisers that we're going to be doing. There's going to be additional funds set aside like that so that we can help cover some of those.
Thank you.
So we both have done fundraisers that have been really successful in the past and that have kind of the community know-how. I do Dancing with the Stars. Thank you, faculty, for helping us with that. And Kenny has always done super well at the individual fundraiser, selling pies around Thanksgiving. So we've got fundraisers in place that the community is already aware of, and they're kind of already anticipating. So we're just going to really milk that.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Other questions for this? Sounds like fun.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Next it will be Angela Williams and the Ballroom Company.
Hello. This is just our spring tour that we've done for many, many years. It's a performance tour. We give the kids opportunities to perform as much as we can. More oriented toward their career and what's available that way. In the past, we've gone to some of the amusement parks. We're trying to stay away from the more costly ones because they have obviously ramped up their prices. So we're thinking Knott's Berry Farm might be a little bit less expensive. I know the Universal Walk, they have a place to do a performance there in the outside there, and so we try to find places that they can perform and or compete. There's usually a competition around that same time down in San Diego that might give them another option to experience there. We try to keep our costs really way down because we have such great fundraisers for our kids, and so I think our cost is still at about $450 or $500, and so that really helps them do a lot. And then we do have individual fundraisers that we help those kids out. We have a great backing from all these years of being here, that we even have donations come in for any kids who are struggling. So we don't ever have to turn away a kid if they say, I can't afford it. It's like, yeah, you can. We'll take care of that. So it's a chance for them to experience some career opportunities in ballroom dance that they wouldn't find here.
Good question.
And it just clarifies it's during spring break,
yeah.
So they're not missing school.
Yeah.
I want to be a chaperone.
Says the guy who's never done it.
They put on
I have done it.
shows.
I really like ballroom dance, actually.
Thank you so much.
I'll take it back.
Charmaine, probably couldn't go. Charmaine is playing.
volleyball. They have a game tonight, so they asked me to come and rep for them. They've been invited to be part of the Nike Tournament of Champions in Phoenix. And because it's an invitational, there was no way to prep and plan it out earlier. They are able to miss only one day of school for this new one. And they already have, where they're at right now is in Durango on one. But again, they planned it out so they only missed one day of school for that. The two trips combined won't surpass their 1,000 that they'd already set for. Players would never go over that. And when they were about to go over it, we had a parent come in and just take care of all the costs for all the girls so that there was no excessive amount there. Yeah, so that will be they'll leave on September 29th and be playing on the 30th and October 1st. Any questions about that one?
So how many traveling ones then are they doing this year? So just the two? If we approve
Yes,
this one?
Durango, the one was already approved.
Okay.
Looks like there's fundraising as well to help out with costs.
I would say a generous benefactor family is coming in to make this happen, but they also do fundraisers as well. So. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, Cynthia Russell Oliphant, acapella.
So pretty similar to Kenny's for Provo High. We'll go down to California. I like to visit 3 or 4 universities and do workshops with the professors. We'll do a Disney workshop and have some fun down in California. The proposal, I think I proposed for 900. We'll do fundraising, and if we need to, we'll shorten. I think I proposed Wednesday or Sunday for the time frame. If we need to shorten that, we can. I just got a rough quote from Infinity 2 last spring when I was doing this. So we can shorten it or eliminate some activities to keep it as cheap as possible. But yeah, same thing, we'll do some fundraisers to help kids that can't afford it. And I think 4 of the last 5 years I've had parents that have said that they can sponsor a kid, an extra kid. So we've been able to take pretty much everybody who wants to go.
Okay, thanks. Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Tintu High School, Haley Steed and Terry Brown for Girls Basketball. All right. Let's see, Centennial Middle School, Brian Van Noy for Washington, D.C.
So this past spring, I started developing an interest in taking students to the East Coast, to Washington, D.C. for an educational excursion. And I got in touch with John at Dixon, and I discovered that they've been doing that for a decade or so. And so at the end of last school year and the beginning of this school year, I've been working with John, Shirel, and a few others to coordinate that together. And so our proposal is to essentially replicate what they have done and what they are doing, just kind of shadow what they've been doing for so long in taking a group of 36 students to Washington, D.C. It'll be from June 7th through the 13th. It would include long days, lots of walking, visiting all sorts of historic sites and memorials and museums and so forth. The overall cost would be approximately $1,800 per student, paid by the student or covered by group fundraising. Let's see, I don't know what else I would say.
Yes, so similar to Dixon, they won't miss any school, and there will be meetings leading up to it. So there's a lot of education that goes in as part of the after-school program, essentially, that Brian will help teach, so that once we get there, they know what they're seeing and what the background is on that.
And it's an application process, so we choose, students will be selected on a variety of factors, including just behavior throughout the school year. Grades will be something that we set up as an expectation as well.
Okay, other questions?
I just want to say I'm glad to see Centennial picking picking up what Dixon's been so good at and giving
Yeah.
that opportunity to kids at that school as well, so thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna be there at the same time?
Yeah, so the plan is to coordinate flying out together. Yeah, so the plan is to be there at the same time. We'll probably cross paths, but the plan is to have separate experiences, but to cross paths. We haven't really worked out details on like whether we would meet up or whatever, but yeah.
Thank you. Dixon Middle School, Carol Gaylord, Boston student travel.
Hi, school board. Hello. So this will be our third camp to Boston. We had a fantastic experience there last year. Like you just heard from Centennial, we do prep 2 times a month leading into the trip so that the kids have background about all the sites we get to visit. Boston is very much focused on the founding of the country. We'll go to Plymouth, see the Mayflower, etc. Learn about the Revolutionary War, all that kind of stuff. We get to walk the Battle Road where the Brits walked. It's an amazing experience, and again, the kids apply. They go through a selection process. They spend a lot of time learning background, as well as how to be safe traveling and that kind of stuff. You guys have questions?
At 1,800 is the cap. We have been able to come in under that, just depend on flights and different things together. That's just the max that we put on both trips. I know we recommended to Centennial as well. Fun story last year, we had a student who came to Miss Gaylord and said she couldn't go. And we didn't really know why, so I called mom. We'd had some family dynamics that made it really hard. I said, look, we'll work with you. $50 a month, $25, let's work it out. And she brought in, so she stayed on and she kept coming to classes, and she brought in about 600 of the 16 that Boston cost last year, shortly before we came or went, and said, I can't pay anymore. I said, we'll work it out, come with us. And she had babysat and done a whole bunch of things this summer.
She had a job at Franklin too.
And then early August, she came in and paid it off. And just the trip was more important, that she come with us, and she came in and she paid it off with her work. And that's what this is about, helping a kid get there, helping a kid experience, and then she took the responsibility and did it herself. Sweeping at Franklin and some babysitting and other things. It was really fun.
Very good question. You said there's an application process. How many kids end up going versus how many apply?
Last year we had, between the 2 trips, we kind of meet together and they applied. About 120 applications, I think. That's about right. And I took 32 to Boston and they took 36 to
But several
DC.
weeded out themselves. So we actually didn't deny 40 kids the trip. 40 kids weeded themselves out when they looked at the requirements, the after-school work, cost, homework.
It's not just
cost,
nature.
we tell them not to let
Yeah.
the cost be prohibitive. We make sure we select students from every one of our 6 schools, the 3 Title Is as well as the 3 non-Title Is. And so cost is not the factor. They self-selected more out of effort and work than they did out of cost.
Yeah, when they hear that it's not just a vacation, that they actually have to do some work and preparation up front.
And this is just, so 60 kids roughly, just Dixon, right? So
We stagger the weeks so that I can be in both locations, managing both sites. And we created the second trip for 2 reasons. We really wanted to see Boston from the historical founding sense, and we were turning down upwards of 40 and 50 kids a year on just the single trip. So the second trip was an effort to see another piece of history and have an excursion that would benefit kids and not turn somebody down. So last year, I don't think we turned anybody down, and Jane wanted to go.
So are kids able to go to both senior?
We haven't let them do that. It's hard enough for an adult to pull that off.
Yeah, but we have had kids go
1
one
year,
place in 7th grade and
and
the
then
second
next
place
year.
in 8th. They chose.
So Mike, here's the reason I'm going to ask this, some more follow-up questions, because if we're going to add on Centennial now, we now add on another 60 kids or whatnot, and approaching 100 or 200 kids. And the cost piece that's prohibitive is the flights. Have you considered chartering our own flight?
We are curious to see how this plays out with more kids on the plane, actually. And one of the things safety-wise, so in terms of DC, we're kind of talking the Chevrolet's trip already. But one of the things that we do with 36 kids is we don't have 36 kids together. We have 3 groups of kids in 3 separate locations. Once we get there, it's all split up for safety. To manage kids getting on the metro, you can't count 36 before the doors open. But you can count 13.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can get 13, 14 kids on the metro really quickly. The other thing is, it's a working city, and so taking up that much space on the metro is a concern to us. We teach them consistently, stand to the right so that workers can go past you on the escalator on the way to work. And we don't take up that space on a metro for workers that are needing to get to where they're going. So we teach the kids a lot beyond just the history of the working government. There's some travel protocol and etiquette and working pieces of that puzzle. So we don't know where that's going to play out. We're definitely going to be working with state travel on that flight, especially where we may have enough kids to get a flight discount situation. Boston,
or even
not so much.
the new airlines coming out of Provo Airport.
Yeah, between luggage and whatnot, we're open to that in working with them. We're just excited to get our sister school working with us. Brian's one of my mistakes in life. He was a tracker for us, and they hired him over there as an intern before I saw the intern list. But the upside is you need good teachers at Centennial too. And he's amazing. But here we are coordinating now, since he was a former employee, and we finally got this joint venture with our sister school, which is great. So we're open to that.
Okay. Any other questions about Boston? Right. Washington, D.C.
See, it was funny because Brian came in and he said, I'm just going to let you get up and then I'll say ditto to what she said. And I said, no, I'm going to make you go first and say ditto to what he said. So, sounds pretty similar. Yeah, so again, we take 36 kids to D.C. So last year we were at $14.50 was the final cost. They do meet every other week for an hour after school. They do assignments. So lots of preparation goes into it. Any DC specific questions?
Okay.
We got rained out at the Nationals game last year. Hopefully not this year.
Rain delay. We did get to watch it, but we didn't keep them out all night because we were flying home the next day. So we didn't want them up till 2 a.m. and then trying to round them up to go to Mount Vernon the next morning. Yep.
On the trip 2 years ago, I don't know if you weren't on the flight, but on the flight home it got delayed. Did you remember
I heard
this?
about that, yeah.
It got delayed, and they actually flew in a jet to just take our group to Salt Lake City.
Really?
Because there were so many of us. Do you remember that?
I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember the details. You were on it, I was not.
So the charter thing's not an option, not a bad spot.
Yeah.
Because there was enough of us that needed to get to Salt Lake City that they just brought another one and set us on.
That's great.
Yeah, they were like, this is a bunch of middle school kids in our airport. Yeah.
Alright.
So did we still approve the one that didn't show up, or what did we do?
We're working on it.
Okay.
So, alright. Derek, child nutrition salary schedule.
So what you have before you is the child nutrition salary schedule that we're trying to update the salary schedule to try to entice people to apply. I'm happy to report that after we updated this, kind of like what we did with transportation, we now have more applicants than we have open positions. So
That's really good.
With transportation?
And transportation too.
Oh, so with child nutrition,
Child
okay.
nutrition and transportation.
So you've already implemented this?
And so the child nutrition one, we're asking that you retroactively approve this to September 1st.
And so the people that are already there and that have been there for several years will get a pretty good raise.
Correct, they're going to get this too. If they fall in line with the requirements of being on that schedule. And that requirement is they're part-time. So if they're full-time benefited, they wouldn't land on this. So these are just the part-time positions.
And is it similar to the transportation where we aren't, like, where are we getting the money from?
So this money is not, we're not going to do anything for the budget.
We're not adding to the budget, okay.
So did I hear right too that transportation has enough applicants and everything too right now? That's great news. That's good news.
I will say transportation's done a good job of advertising as well. Like they've got nice signs on their buses and everything.
They're parked all over the place.
Yeah.
So I met with
Come
actually.
drive with me. That's
My kids gawk at this one or whatever. I need to be a bus driver.
That's what my Troy yesterday actually just came, we talked, and he said we're sitting really good right now in transportation, so.
Okay. All right, any other questions about that?
I will let my next door neighbor know she's getting a raise.
Well, we have to approve it first. But yeah. All right, Todd, McKee graduation dates and
Yes.
locations.
Good evening, board. Just briefly, I've shared with you in your board packet the graduation dates, locations, and times for this coming year. A couple of dates I want to point out to you. First is October 5th is our fall graduation. This year it'll start at 5 o'clock at Timpview. Timpview's leading the way up this year, and they do have a little bit of a conflict later in the evening, so we've moved it to 5 o'clock, and I believe that's the same time we had last year at Provo High School, so we believe we can accommodate.
It's only usually about a half hour long.
Exactly. So we feel confident about that on the 5th. Secondly, a change was made to the district calendar with the adjustment to our end of the year moving to a Friday instead of a Thursday. We've moved Independence to the 25th, so they'll have their graduation that Thursday night. Originally was scheduled for a Monday, and we agreed with the school that a Monday night would be more challenging for them. So that's a change. The last point I share with you, and this is where the board may provide us some feedback. Timpview High School is originally scheduled for Tuesday the 23rd. Right now it's at BYU because that's the only venue that's available that evening. They're requesting to move it to Saturday the 20th at UVU. They were able to do that last year as a last-minute change due to the venue. They received some feedback from their community and they want to try to do that again. I told them we'd bring it to the district and also get some input from the board on a Saturday graduation because it is different from our norm.
So we're okay with this if this works for the board, but we want to bounce it off of you first.
Did the students have a say?
I believe they sought input from their student government. That's typically the practice is the student government is in the senior class.
Same with Provo High. Instead of having it on their football field, they wanted it at UVU.
I couldn't speak to that directly. I didn't ask that question.
Is there a problem that the Timpview students would be out earlier than the Provo High students?
That came up a little bit last year. It wasn't really a problem. They typically, both schools have gotten into this practice where the last, I hesitate to call it the official day, but they do that Friday before the last week as their senior day. That's when they do the end of testing and everything. That allows teachers to get the work in for their grad progress to ensure that students that need to graduate, want to graduate, have met all the requirements. It buys them some time. It gives them some flexibility going into that last week where they can work with kids that are on the bubble. So they typically finish their formal classes the Friday before.
I'd say if that's what the school wants to do, I think that's great. As a parent who had a graduate last year and we had that Saturday, I thought it was fantastic, and I think that's how it should be for everybody. Doesn't interfere with all the other things that happen on this day. But.
I'm hearing a potential new norm for our district. So. Any other input, feedback?
So when will the school officially announce that?
Probably first thing in the morning.
So my only can you report a little bit to us on the information gathered, because I think everybody really liked the time. They felt like they, rather than trying to wrangle their kid at the end of the day, they woke up their kid, they got him ready, they took him to graduation, they had a whole afternoon with family, yeah. Then they went off to events, yeah. But then that midnight on a Sunday seemed to create a problem for a segment.
And certainly could see
so can you just, I'd feel better if I, rather than go, the community likes it, what was the process to get our community feedback on that?
I think it's right at this point it's anecdotal. What I've heard from the principal is that they received enough, what they felt was enough input from parents and students to keep Saturday to make the request. But we certainly can ask them to do something more formally to gather input from the community,
I
because
mean,
I could see
even-
that being an issue.
Even if it was.
Yeah, it starts to conflict with
They just-
all-night grad party and those kinds of
No,
activities.
yeah.
They can choose to have their grad night on another night.
I mean, I don't know if they'll need to do anything different, no offense, Hal, but if it was mommy saying, oh, this is who, you know, we went into the community council, we talked with PTA, if I just
Yep.
knew that would just help.
Certainly, I can follow up on that. So am I to hear then tentatively agreed, pending follow-up?
Whatever
on
the school wants to do,
for the
we're gonna
process?
support them.
So, appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
I had a quick question. Sorry, I just ate a bite right before you ended. You guys, I thought that was going to go on longer.
I'm short-winded sometimes.
Why is it that Timpview and Provo High were planned on different dates and different locations in the first place? I'm just curious, because I know in the past, a lot of times we would do Timpview at UVU at, you know, whatever, 3, and then Provo High at 7, and do them on the same day and get them both done.
We went away from that practice. It's been probably...
It's been like 3 years?
It's been long. I believe it's been
Longer?
longer than that. And part of the challenge is venue availability. And our request that they not take away from the instructional day as much as they can. They run half days on those days, instructional days. They're getting in a situation where competition for the venues between the 3 districts in the county, you know, some of those graduations are starting at 9 in the morning. So there was a request that we do the best we can to maintain that instructional day for the other 3 grades that are still in school, and that we also ensure that we're accommodating the needs of parents that may be working or unable to get the day off. So an evening time met that need better, but it was impossible to run both graduations in the same evening without real controversy. So dividing it between the days made the most sense.
That's right.
I know Jordan and Canyons are also using UVU.
Yeah. And there's a lot of competition for venue right now.
Yeah, my cousin's daughter graduated at UVU. There's a lot of, there's not really
So
anything
far
over
for
that.
them.
She went to Harriman High School.
Yeah, that's so far for them.
Yeah, I think even Rio Tinto was used last year.
Yeah.
Really?
By Alpine, some of Alpine use.
Yeah.
And we don't know why Provo High didn't elect to go on their field again?
You know, I can speculate, but I didn't ask that specifically. But I can surmise that it was some of the problems they had with environment, you know, the wind and some of that made it a challenge. I know the school heard about just those factors.
Yeah. It was extremely windy.
And I think if they could guarantee the weather,
Right. That makes sense.
they would.
You never know in May.
Yeah, it could be really, really hot, it could be really windy, or it could be pouring rain.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go back to the student travel, and Mary James is going to discuss the Timpview Grove basketball.
Yeah, thanks for your patience here. I think we had a little bit of confusion as to when the coaches needed to come, but this is an easy one. They also were invited to this prestigious Nike Tournament of Champions, and they already have a date that was for in Las Vegas, and they just want to cancel the Las Vegas tournament that they had and do this one instead because it's a more prestigious tournament. So it's really no additional cost. They already had all the transportation costs and everything figured out already. They're just essentially changing the location from Las Vegas to Phoenix and changing the names. Any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Beginning of the year school report, Jason Cox.
Good evening, school board. I have just a brief presentation for you tonight. I want to start off though by just talking about how positive the reports have been from the school about the start of the school year. As I've been out visiting the schools, many of the principals, in fact just today Alex and I were visiting with a couple of the elementary principals who talked about how this year feels like a normal year, where the last few years have felt quite different, have felt very opposite of that. So I think there's a lot of positives going into this school year. I'm going to, again, just share some brief numbers with you. Bonnie, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So we had a projected enrollment of 13,624. we're at 13,716. We're up 92 students so far at this point in the school year. And most of those are actually in the elementary setting, which is a positive because, again, we had a lot of students not return that first year after we'd gone out with COVID. And now this is showing that there's kind of a steady return. Last year we had a lot of students return. This year, again, we're having students return. And so we're doing well there. This was Derek's first projection for Provo as far as how he runs his projection process, so he was really close. I thought he did a great job of
I was thinking I was
projecting.
going to nail it because I was originally at I'm surprised at this number actually, the 13.7, because at the 10-day drop we were at like 13,670 or somewhere around there, and I was like, after the 10-day drop we'll nail that number, and it's actually now gone up. So we've gone up like 50 students from the last time you and I talked.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that was mostly attributed to our elementary schools. We did have actually a little bit of a drop in our e-school program, which is kind of interesting, but the two have balanced out where we are still up a little bit. Bonnie, thanks. Sorry. So Derek was talking earlier about the progress we've had with hiring. We were able to hire all certified positions to begin the school year. That's something I mention every year, and it's because we're lucky in that other school districts don't always get to that mark of having a certified teacher hired for their classrooms as they start the school year. So, you know, it's something I think we need to continue to celebrate, that we have certified people in our classes to start the beginning of the year. All special education teachers are fully licensed, which again, that's a big task. We undertook kind of a work together, Suraj and I, a couple of years ago to be able to get to this point, and we want to celebrate that too, that we have fully certified people in those classes. And, you know, again, going back to what Derek mentioned, by increasing the hourly wage, we've had great support in both child nutrition and transportation. Bonnie, if you don't mind going to the next one for us. We've been working closely with PESPA, that's the Classified Association. As we've gone through to make these changes to their salary schedule on the hourly side, we've wanted them to be at the table with us, knowing that that's where we're going. We've talked about other groups that we would like to consider and look at. Some of those are our instructional assistants in our schools. We've had really kind of an interesting trend with the instructional assistants. Some schools have hired back everyone that they need. Other schools are missing still 4 or 5 people. So that's been a little bit of an interesting trend, and so we're trying to work more school specific on that. There are certain schools that are just having a little bit harder time on hiring back their instructional assistants. Oh, and I apologize. Do you mind I have you go back to that? So we're going to be working with the new teachers who are underqualified. That means that they are hired with a degree, but they may not be fully certified in the area that they're currently teaching. And so we'll be bringing to you a list of teachers to have you approve them as being LEA-specific licenses for this year. That group last year, I believe it was 29 people. We're right about the same number again this year of new teachers who are coming on to us who will need an LEA-specific license for this year. But I'll have that for you in the October board meeting. And there's a state deadline to have that done before October 15th. So we'll have that ready for you. So that's what I mentioned there. Assignment 1, request the approval from you as the board. Then we're going to continue to work with PESP on filling the positions to support our students. We know that, you know, we are lucky again to have classroom teachers, but we need all those other support people to actually make things run smoothly. We can't do it without them. And I think that's something that as part of our messaging we need to keep reminding people that.
You may have answered this, but what percentage do we still need to fill on them? Do we know?
On the instructional assistants, yeah. I don't have a percentage. The other hard part of that is that on our applicant process, people have to go in and actively close positions after they've been filled. So I went yesterday to look at how many positions we still had open. There were quite a few of them that people have forgotten to close. Okay. And so the number was like 120 positions available. I know as I scanned through them, a lot of those have been hired, but it was difficult for me to say, I'm not exactly sure at that location how many they still need. I've spoken more with specific principals, for instance, like Carrie at Timpanogos. She and I have talked about her concern with instructional assistants. I sent a couple of people who came just walking in today wanting to come to work for us. They actually have certification in their home country, but they want to work for us as instructional assistants while they're here. And so I sent that information to her. But she's one of the schools that is still 4 or 5 people down that I am aware of. But I apologize, I don't have more specifics on the overall number. And then we really value our 2 employee associations. We like the ability to work with them. It's made our negotiations so much easier because we believe we're working towards the same goals. We meet with them monthly and talk through their concerns and their needs and their wants for the coming year, and just for now, something timely to address working conditions. So we'll continue to do that throughout this coming school year. And that's it for my presentation.
Jason, anything you want to add regarding hiring custodial?
Yeah, custodial is actually, again, on that list. As we've met with the PESP Association, they actually helped us prioritize where we would put our changes first. So they worked with us on transportation, child nutrition, because they were of the greatest need. Custodial is actually the next group that we're going to be visiting about. So COVID made a demand for us to hire a lot of people to clean regularly, to be, going throughout the building, wiping down handles, doing those kinds of things. We now have the ability to cut back on that number, but we still have quite a need in the custodial ranks. Both of the 2 high schools have been running at pretty low numbers as far as what they traditionally would have. They usually both have about 13 to 15 people who are hired and working all the time for them, and they've been more in the range of 8 to 9 over these last 2 years, and it's been difficult on them. So that'll be an area of focus that we'll be working on with that association. Any other questions?
Thank you. It's been a good start to the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to discuss the consultant presentation that we had. Okay. I guess what we could do is just...
Could I make a motion we move, since this is a bit of a personnel, if we could move to an executive session?
I second that.
Just, for the purpose of, because we're discussing personnel.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Yes.
And say that we skip our consent calendar and all of that part of this agenda, so then we could go to executive session and close out and then go to this meeting, not have to come back to this.
That's fine with me. Okay, so let's, consent calendar. Is there any questions about the consent calendar?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm pulling it up.
Okay, go to the executive summary. And then on page 5, should the temporary parking lot be on this year's budget or Cynthia?
That needs to come off. It looks like that was a carryover from last
That's
year,
what I
and that
thought.
just hasn't been deleted, that line.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the consent calendar?
I have, oh, no, not on the consent calendar.
Okay. Let's discuss the upcoming calendar items. Let's see. USDA Fall Regional Meeting is Tuesday, September 20th. Bonnie sent us an email saying, let her know if she's planning on attending. So.
Here?
No, that's it.
Spanish Fork.
It's in Spanish Fork at Nebo.
Nebo's district office.
Yeah. And then Foundation Golf Tournament. Caleb, do you want to talk anything about that? Or?
So it's the 21st, and registration and breakfast starts at 7. The golfing started a little bit earlier at 8 this year. Then there will still be lunch estimates come in around 11:30 noon. So you guys are invited to come whenever you want, but during the registration breakfast and then after at lunchtime is kind of where people can actually talk to you and you can introduce yourselves and answer questions they might have. But you're welcome to come to any and all of it if you'd like.
Okay, but at the Provo one again?
Yeah, it's down in
East Bay.
East Bay, it's at the Nose Golf Club.
Okay, let us know if you need help.
Yeah. What was that?
Let us know if you need help.
Okay.
Okay. We also then, on Thursday, September 22nd, we have a joint board meeting with the city council. So, and that's at the city council chambers at 12 p.m. I don't know where the new council chambers are.
Main floor, the first floor.
Main floor.
5 blocks from my house.
So you can just walk.
Yes, I can. Kind of nice.
Yeah. So that will be there. I'm assuming they'll probably have lunch for us there. If you have questions or things that you would like to discuss, send those to Bonnie, and she can get those too. Did they get a new council?
Yes, Cliff works for Sandy City now, and I don't remember.
No, but I thought, don't
they
they have a
were
new
gonna
council
vote on
chair?
their chair last time, but I didn't follow through.
George, it's George Hammer? Okay. So, okay. So, or I can reach out to George if you have something that you want to discuss at this meeting, send it my way or Bonnie's way and we can give it to George.
The
Okay.
tour of the building.
Yeah, tour of the building.
Tour of the building would be cool. The new building. Yeah.
So.
The mayor always has good chocolate.
All right, and then AutoCon is Thursday, September 22nd at Provo High School. And then we have our board retreat, also known as the all-day study session.
Thank
And
you.
that will be, it is going to be jam-packed, so it will be all day on that one. We have a lot to go over on that one.
So it is starting at 8:30.
It will start at 8:30. Yes.
I'll be late.
No. And then elementary kindness retreat, Wednesday, September 5th. That's a lot of fun. Alex, you want to say
October
anything?
5th.
Oh,
So we're
the October 5th.
Yeah.
It says September 5th here.
So that one's October 5th. There's also the secondary one is September 28th. So they're a week apart on Wednesday at the Harmon Building.
Right now, we're still planning on the Harmon Building.
Okay.
Happy Radio?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it's not going to be at the Provo Library anymore.
It's not, but this is the first year that we're kind of attempting to try a new venue to see how it works out. If it doesn't work out, we'll probably move back to the library.
Okay, great.
You still need help at lunch. That was always the big.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah.
We're having lunch
Yeah,
around
reach
11:30
it.
both days.
Send out an email to all of us
Okay.
if you need help. So, and then PTA Executive Committee will be Tuesday, October 11th, and study session and business meeting on Tuesday, October 11th. There's a time right now at 5 p.m. and we'll wait and see. So yeah.
I just want to make sure that I am not speaking at fall graduation because I have.
No, I was just gonna say, who is it?
October
I think
5th.
it's me.
That's you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Just checking. I didn't know. I wasn't sure.
Gina, do you want that one?
No, I just wanted to make sure I don't show up and they expect me to speak.
You could just go on the fly, right?
I probably could.
So, all right. Okay. Any other questions about upcoming events? All right. Is there a motion then?
Move that we move to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
Okay, a second. All those in favor indicate with aye and their name, Melanie Hall, aye.
Rebecca Nielsen, aye.
Jennifer Partridge, aye.
Kay Jensen, aye.
Gina Hales, aye.
Terry McCabe, aye.
Okay, we are now in executive session, and I'm going to ask everybody but the board to leave.